Chapter 25-29. He couldn't use the law, and Ning Shu couldn't hide himself either. Setting up a huge array also required him to avoid surveillance. To be honest, it was very difficult to complete the task without any power. Even if he completed it and successfully destroyed this place, such an organization would still exist. Because there was a need, there would be related benefits. For parents, they were powerless or unable to discipline their children. Now that someone could discipline their children for them and make their children better, it was like a life-saving straw. Even if they knew that it would hurt the children, the worst-case scenario could not be worse. For children, this was a place where they suffered physical and mental trauma. Here, they endured unbearable torture, were beaten, and had their self-esteem humiliated. They had no right to choose, or they would face an even more painful and embarrassing situation. They watched indifferently as the people around them were punished. They were glad that they were not punished and were afraid that they would be punished. They wouldn't think about whether it was right or not. Ning Shu held his head and sneaked around every day. It was very likely that he would be caught. Who knew what kind of punishment he would receive if he was caught? Ning Shu felt that such militarized management was close to a crazy state. It was necessary to turn them into adults. These problem students had been labeled as javelins. When they grew up, they would be the scum of society. They would be the scum of society and would be trained to be perfect and obedient. Without power, Ning Shu's work of collecting hair or nails was very slow. He secretly used his mental strength to pull out hair and had to collect it properly. He also had to remember who had pulled out hair and who had not. Ning Shu felt that his whole person was not very good. However, his body was very uncomfortable, and there was not enough spirit energy to repair the damaged body. Ning Shu felt that his head would fall off at any time. Boy's hair was very short. If he didn't pay attention, it would fall off and he couldn't find it. Girls had short hair that reached their ears, and boys had flat hair. They were not allowed to have fashionable hairstyles and wore strange clothes. Collecting these hairs every day made Ning Shu's head explode. This body was about to die, but Ning Shu was dragging it on. Anyway, when the client's mother came, he would let her have a taste of the pain of dying. If the child was disobedient, did not have good grades, and was disobedient and unfilial, these parents would be worried to death. They would lose face and feel helpless. How could there be love? There was only hatred. Ning Shu made himself perform better. He didn't want to make any mistakes or stand out so that the teachers and instructors wouldn't notice him. It wasn't a big deal to play some tricks in private. Ning Shu picked the one who was the most talkative and seemed to be earnestly advising everyone all day long, saying that if they did not work hard, they would be the scum of society and become trash who stole and swindled. He decided to temporarily use this person as a soul carrier. Every time they heard the teacher say that, none of the students objected. This was because they had to respect the teacher here. The teacher was always doing it for their own good. Their parents sent them here for their own good. If he retorted or resisted, he would be punished and trained. Running and jumping were easy, but the worst thing was being hit with solid steel bars. In order to avoid punishment, all the children would do whatever they were told. If this was obedience, then it didn't matter. If they didn't talk back, they wouldn't be punished. Ning Shu felt that even if these children went out, they would be different from the children outside. They would be cold and numb, and even their last bit of self-esteem would be dismembered. When such children entered society, they could really become the high and mighty children that their parents talked about. They could do a high-class job with a high salary, find a fairy-like wife, and live in a high-end neighborhood. Ning Shu felt that it was a little difficult. Everything here was constantly reminding these children that they were the scum of society. They were different from ordinary children. When a child suffered something, he would be afraid. He would even imitate and have violent tendencies. The influence of the original family had a huge impact on a child. When a girl was born into a family that valued boys over girls, she would also value boys over girls. She would see herself as a projection. In the future, she wouldn't love her daughter who was also a female. She might even see her daughter as a disgrace. Here, they would do whatever they were told to do. They would study hard and couldn't play games because it wasn't allowed. Walking among such people every day, Ning Shu felt that he was walking among a group of zombies. Wasn't he just a walking corpse? These children didn't kill anyone, and they didn't commit any crimes. However, they had even less dignity than criminals. Even if they paid attention to humanism for criminals and even abolished the death penalty, why were they so cruel to these children? Was it because they were really hopeless? Ning Shu sped up his collection work. He was really tired. His body was very tired. He stayed up all night to cultivate, but he couldn't cultivate any spiritual energy. Ning Shu felt that he was about to become a big shot in the immortal sect. His body was very heavy. Every day, he had to run and exercise. When he was free, he had to move bricks. He also didn't eat well. If it wasn't for the fasting pills, Ning Shu felt that he might have already died. However, he had to persevere and let this body live a little longer. He would definitely let the client's mother feel a different kind of pleasure. Ning Shu didn't dare to be too ostentatious. He was afraid that the teachers and instructors would stare at him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do anything. He had been here for more than 10 days to half a month. The client's mother didn't come to see him, nor did she call him. The school didn't allow it. The school was afraid that the students would say something to the parents. If the parents didn't meet the parents' requirements, wouldn't that ruin the school's reputation? After waiting for another year or so, the parents would be able to face a brand new child. This was a pleasant surprise. The school fees here were very expensive. If the problem was serious, they would have to stay here for a year or half a year. The school fees were 30 to 40,000 yuan for half a year. If the family's conditions were good, the money didn't matter. If the family's conditions weren't good, it would be a bit difficult to take out 30 to 40,000 yuan. Giving money meant suffering. There were many children in the school. Ning Shu's collection work was very slow. He couldn't just walk over and say, "Give me a strand of your hair." This kind of abnormal behavior, the instructors and teachers might be able to interpret another meaning. The ancients had the habit of tying black hair. That was, a husband and wife would cut a bunch of hair and put it together. It meant that the husband and wife would grow old together. Was she going to say that she was in a puppy love again? Ning Shu, sister, is already in a relationship at dusk. When everything was ready, Ning Shu's face was a little green. It had the green color of a dead person. In the dead of night, Ning Shu hid in the bathroom. He took out his hair and used the lighter he stole from the cafeteria to ignite his hair. The hair curled up and turned into ashes, emitting the smell of burnt protein. Chapter 25-30. Ning Shu placed the ashes of her hair into a cup, pricked her finger, and dripped it into the ashes. Ning Shu drew out her soul force to draw the talisman. Soul force flowed out of her body continuously. Ning Shu felt her body getting weaker and weaker. Her soul and mind were unable to continue. She felt extremely uncomfortable and weak. After painstakingly finishing the last stroke of the talisman, Ning Shu's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and her face was as pale as paper. Once the talisman was completed, it emitted a weak luster and scattered the souls of the children in all directions. At the same time, the entire school was in a huge array. Under the effect of the soul force, the array began to slowly revolve and rise, finally enveloping the sky above the school. The sky was incomparably dark and silent. There was no sound at all, not even the sound of insects. It was as if there was no one there. Whether she could succeed or not depended on this. During this time, Ning Shu kept injecting her soul force into the array. The array slowly revolved in midair. This was a world that believed in science. To achieve such an effect, the cost was too great, and it was also heaven-defying. Ning Shu felt that the heavens were about to strike her. She waited for the threads to return and attract the souls. During this time, the array could not be broken. If it was broken, the soul attraction would fail. Moreover, it was a soul attraction with so many people. The number of souls required for the array was astonishing. Ning Shu felt that the array was continuously extracting her soul force. If she wanted to change it, she would have to pay a price. Now, it was consuming her soul force. Fortunately, her soul force was more resilient now. If it was in the past, her soul would have been sucked away, and not even a speck would be left. These faintly flickering threads brought back a soul. Each thread brought a soul. These souls were ignorant. When they went to sleep in the middle of the night, their souls left their bodies. Children were born from their parents. They were of the same origin, and the degree of soul fusion was the highest. Moreover, these children usually had a strong obsession in their hearts. The soul attraction would naturally attract the people they missed or hated. Moreover, Ning Shu limited it to parents. She quickly let these souls fuse into her body. Time was soul force. The operation of the array was constantly extracting her soul force. Ning Shu didn't know how much of his soul force had been sucked away. He just felt that his soul was very weak. A soul was standing in front of him. It was the client's mother. The client looked quite similar to her mother. Ning Shu left the body and allowed the client's mother to enter it. Her soul entered her body in a daze, and she fell to the ground softly. Although his soul had entered his body, he still needed to wait for a while before his soul could merge with his body. Otherwise, it would be easy for his soul to suddenly leave his body. In fact, there were certain side effects. Some children were not even 14 years old. Exchanging souls like this would wear and tear on their bodies. Ning Shu set the time, and when he saw that it was about time, it seemed that all the souls had completely fused. Then, he retracted the formation. He wiped away the charms that had lost their effect on the ground. Ning Shu lowered his head and looked at his own soul. Emma was so weak. Almost half of her soul force had been extracted. This was something that couldn't be helped. There was no other way to replace it. She could only use her soul force. Now that Ning Shu didn't have a body, he was like a lonely ghost. Especially after doing such a thing. Exchanging souls was such a heaven-defying thing. He would definitely be struck by lightning. Ning Shu had to think of a way to hide. After a while, the whole dormitory building began to scream. Some people who woke up and saw where they were, and were dumbfounded. Some people directly screamed, causing the entire building to be in an uproar. What's going on? Why am I here? Why am I in my daughter's body? This must be a dream. It was the same male dormitory. Compared to the female dormitory was filled with panic. The female dormitory was pointing at the sky and cursing the earth. What was going on? The commotion in the dormitory made the teachers, dormitory management, and instructors move out. Some of the instructors were holding solid steel bars in their hands. Whoever didn't listen would be beaten up. Ning Shu, who was in his soul form, looked at these people with a cold face. Finally, he didn't have to bear the pain of his body. The mother of the client who was lying in the toilet also woke up. When she woke up, she painfully covered her neck. It was very painful. She stood up and looked at the situation around her. Everyone was in a panic. What are you doing? Are you rebelling? Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night? Why am I here? Teacher, I am Li Shanshan's mother. We have met before. I am Ma Xia's mother. I am. These parents who had their souls swapped all panicked and revealed their identity to the teacher and instructor. However, no one believed these people's words. Do you know the story of the boy who cried wolf? It's like running away. Why? Are you pretending to be your parents and rebelling? The instructor and teacher said coldly. The teacher didn't believe these hopeless children at all. The first thing he thought was that these people were lying. As for why they were lying, it was simple. They wanted to run away. The conditions here were difficult. Some of the children who were used to being lazy naturally couldn't adapt. They wanted to run away at all times. Now, they even came up with such a big lie. What, I am the child's parent? Who would believe this kind of nonsense, especially now that everyone was saying so? It made the teacher and instructor feel that these children had discussed it beforehand. They wanted to cause a commotion and run away. Surrounded by the chattering children, the instructor sternly shouted that no commotion was allowed. For those who disobeyed, he directly hit them with solid steel bars. These people cried out in pain. The others suddenly quieted down. Seeing that the person who was beaten was in so much pain, their faces all turned ugly. One after another, they said, "Who are you? How dare you hit people? Do you know who I am? I paid your school, but you still hit people." The instructor just sneered at the person who spoke. "You are hopeless. Lock her in the small dark room." This girl was immediately pulled away. When she was pulled away, she even said that she wanted to complain about the school. What kind of attitude was that? This girl's parents were probably rich or influential people. Her words were especially arrogant. But in this kind of situation, her actions would only be regarded as rebellious, hopeless, arrogant, and despotic. She didn't look like a good child at all. Everyone go to the field to combine. It seems that you all have nothing to do. Drilling until daybreak. The instructor said coldly. These people ignored the instructor. In their hearts, they were puzzled and afraid. Why did they become their own children? Hurry up. The instructor saw that these people were lazy. None of them were serious. They were all fine before. Why did they suddenly rebound so much? They had clearly become obedient, but now they were all sloppy. Chapter 25-31. Hurry up. Does everyone have to receive the 5-dragon whip? The teachers and instructors were so angry that the veins on their foreheads popped out when they saw them like this. What the hell? The instructors didn't stand on ceremony. They took a pointer and an electric baton and hit these people directly. Go to the field and combine. Some people were in so much pain that their faces contorted. They shouted angrily, "This is a crime. What right do you have to hit people? Your parents sent you here, so we have to be responsible for you. As long as it's useful, go to the field and combine." Afraid of being beaten again, these girls went to the field. Some parents dragged their feet and didn't take the instructor's words to heart. In the end, the parents who went to the field were trained to do 50 push-ups. These parents were all people who had entered society. Even if they were gathered, they stood in a crooked manner. They gathered in 2s and 3s to talk about the current situation. The instructors didn't stand on ceremony. They took solid steel bars and hit these people's calves and stomachs. It was so painful that it was as if their muscles had been broken. "Fuck, what are you doing?" Some of the hot-tempered fathers were furious. The pain made them angry as they pointed at the instructors and cursed. Then, they began to push and shout. The scene was chaotic and a fight broke out. These people felt like they were dreaming. They dreamed that they had become children. Furthermore, they were their own children who were being beaten in their dreams. However, the pain on their bodies was so real. It was excruciating. After being hit in the calves and stomachs, it hurt to walk. There were also some girls who used the way girls fought, scratching with their nails. However, in school, they weren't allowed to have long nails. They weren't allowed to use nail polish, much less manicure. Without such sharp nails, their combat strength was greatly reduced. In short, the scene was chaotic. Ning Shu sat by the flower bed and supported his chin as he watched the chaotic scene. When people were hurt, they had to resist. Resisting was to protect themselves. However, these children were required to accept these injuries. These parents were beaten until they screamed. Some of the girls even cried out. The chaos in the school attracted the attention of all the teachers and instructors. They all took action. With batons and solid steel bars, they joined the chaotic battle. There were cries of pain and curses. Seeing this scene, Ning Shu felt that it was not a waste for her to spend so much of her spiritual force to set up such an array. These parents were all people who had stepped into society. Some of them even had a relatively high social status and were respected by others. Being treated like this, their self-esteem and dignity were insulted, and the scene was extremely chaotic. If such a thing happened to their own child, they would only blame their own child and even say that it was a good beating. When it was their turn, they would fight back. When they were humiliated, they would fight back to regain their dignity. It wasn't only adults who had self-respect and dignity, and it wasn't only adults who had character. In the end, even the principal of the school was alerted. When Ning Shu saw the principal, he smiled. Boom! Ning Shu heard the sound of thunder in the sky. Ning Shu quickly turned into a drop of water and merged with the principal's body. Previously, they had chosen a teacher as the host, but now that the principal had appeared, the principal was naturally more suitable. Ning Shu merged into the principal's body in the form of a drop of water. He didn't snatch the principal's body, nor did he participate in any of the principal's decisions. Whether the principal decided to strengthen the education or punish these people, Ning Shu wouldn't interfere. After all, these people would be the ones suffering. At the same time, they avoided the heavenly punishment. The rumbling sounds were to kill her. These were all 15 or 16 years old children. They weren't adults yet. No matter how powerful they were still children. Moreover, the other party was tall and strong and had weapons in his hands. This farce lasted for a while before it ended. The instructor yelled that these people were hopeless, that they were trash, and that they would be useless scum in the future. No matter how they were taught, it would be useless. These parents had never been pointed at and scolded like this before. What trash! What scum! In short, personal attacks were thrown at them. Some of the parents' faces turned cold. They felt that when they woke up, they would take their children away, drop them out of school, and change schools. These parents didn't feel sorry for their children. They were angry at themselves for the pain they had suffered. Even if they felt sorry for their children, they were thinking of the best for their children. Children were young, and the rod made a filial son. However, when it happened to them, they were so angry. Some of the hot-tempered parents started to make a fuss again. A new round of chaos began. Some of the children had several bruises on their bodies. They were lying on the ground and couldn't get up. Under the suppression of absolute force, the chaos ended quickly. The instructor made everyone run around the field with weights. After running, they had to do frog jumps. Frog jumps were especially painful. The next day, the muscles in the legs would be so sore that they couldn't move. Going up and down the stairs would be so painful that they would cry. Even touching their legs would hurt. Of course, these parents wouldn't obediently run. Even if they wanted to exercise, it was under voluntary circumstances. How could they force people like this? Some of the hot-tempered parents even sneered and scolded, "I'm the one who pays the money. How dare you treat me like this?" What they got was a beating. For those who didn't run, a dragon whip would hit their legs and stomachs. Let's see if you still want to run. Jump up and run. Sparsely, some people began to run. It was human nature to hate work. These people usually didn't even know how to exercise. Suddenly, they were so tired that they started to pant. Ning Shu, who was in the principal's body, heard the rumbling of thunder. This kind of thunder couldn't be heard by others, but Ning Shu could. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm willing to lose my soul energy to do such a thing? Ning Shu paid special attention to the client's mother. The client's mother was running at the back of the pack. She ran slower and looked like she was in pain. Her body was in pain, especially her neck, which hadn't recovered yet. When she ran, her head would sway and she would feel like vomiting. Moreover, she would sweat all over. Ning Shu felt pain even with this body, let alone ordinary people. Run faster. Did you not eat? The instructor shouted. Under the huge lights, groups of people didn't sleep at night and ran on the field. Some people were so tired that they sat on the ground and panted. Even if the body wasn't their own, they could still feel the pain they had to endure after entering this body. The client's mother ran to the side and started to vomit. However, there was nothing in her stomach. Ning Shu usually ate fasting pills. Usually, other than drinking water, there was nothing in his stomach. The client's mother supported herself against the wall and retched for a while. She was dizzy and her neck hurt when she moved. Not to mention running. She felt like her head was bouncing like a rubber ball. It was so painful that she felt like she was going to die. Her body was so heavy that she couldn't lift her feet. Chapter 25-32. If this was really a dream, they hoped that they could wake up quickly. It was really uncomfortable. Get up and run. You haven't even finished half of it. The instructor came over with a steel bar. Those who were sitting on the ground could only get up and continue running. The steel bar was too painful when it hit them. The instructor and teachers looked at the children who were running. They were really disappointed. Previously, these children were very obedient and ran very fast. Why did it become like this? The principal was still watching at the side. Would he say that their work ability was not good enough and that they did not do their job well? In short, these teachers and instructors were cursing in their hearts. They felt that they had to train these children fiercely and let them return to their previous obedient and sensible state. Some of the children were about to leave school. If they were handed over to their parents like this, it would not only be a matter of reputation but also related to their own bonuses. The parents would rather their children be stupid. As long as they were obedient and did not annoy others, it would be fine. After running 10 rounds with difficulty, everyone felt as if there were needles in their lungs. It was so painful that they could not breathe. Now, 5 rounds of frog jump around the field. The instructor said. I'll fucking jump. What the hell is this? I'm not doing it. I want to complain. Waves of cursing sounded. Everyone's emotions were high. It was fine that they had run away previously. Now, they had to jump again before they could even catch their breath. If you want to jump, do it yourself. Some directly sat on the ground and lay on the ground panting. White light had already lit up the sky. The sky was going to be bright soon. The huge lights were not so glaring anymore. Those who thought that this was a dream saw that the sky was bright. They woke up. They closed their eyes and opened them again. They were still here. Surrounding them were teachers and instructors who were holding pointers and rulers. They looked fierce and were especially scary. Just thinking about those things hitting their bodies made them tremble. The instructors and teachers also felt very hopeless. These students were not easy to discipline. If they did not listen to them, then they would hit them. If they knew that it was painful, then they would naturally be obedient. Anyway, there were cries of pain everywhere. These people could only squat down and grab their own ankles and start frog jumping. It was especially painful. They kept muttering curses. At this moment, they hit them with the ruler. What are the school rules? Respect the teachers. If you scold again, you are simply scum. You don't even know how to respect the teachers. He was truly in despair. Couldn't he even say a few words? How could he respect his teacher? From afar, the leapers looked like a group of jumping frogs. She would not be able to withstand this kind of exercise after a few jumps, let alone 5 laps. She might not be able to get out of bed the next day. However, the teachers would always take a small notebook to record the mistakes of the students and slowly educate them in the future. The client's mother fainted. She was on the verge of collapsing. Her body was already feeling extremely uncomfortable. Under such intense exercise, her body couldn't take it anymore and she fainted. Don't pretend to be dead. If you're not dead, then continue. The instructor kicked her body. Every time she used the same excuse, it was annoying. He had seen too many of these people who were hopeless and full of lies, using illness as an excuse to avoid punishment. The client's mother woke up and pleaded, "Let me rest for a while. My head hurts, and my neck hurts too. I think it's a stiff neck or a concussion." Even if he spoke too much, he would feel very sad. If you're not dead, then keep running. You don't have so many problems. Lazy people shit and pee a lot. The instructor said without hesitation and directly pulled her up. As soon as she was pulled up, her head began to sway and she retched. Ning Shu just looked at her. There should be some spiritual energy in that body, which could last for a while. However, without continuous spiritual energy, the body would die sooner or later. If Ning Shu hadn't come over, the body would have almost rotted by now. Everyone was leapfrogging. They were extremely tired. Just thinking about how long it would take to finish 5 laps in such a big field made them feel very desperate. They didn't know when the endless torture would end. When everyone finished 5 laps, many people's faces were pale and they didn't even want to speak. At this time, the sky was completely bright. The sun shone on the ground, bringing warmth to the earth. However, these people were cold all over and sweating. When the wind blew, goosebumps rose all over their bodies. When it was time for breakfast, everyone limped to the cafeteria. When they saw breakfast, some people immediately flipped the table. What is this for people to eat? Pig food? Is this for people to eat? Some people were already starving. They originally thought that the student meal wouldn't be so nutritious and would definitely be simple, but they never expected it to be this kind of food. Then what do you want to eat? Delicacies, abalone, bird's nest. You can eat whatever you're given here. You have to cultivate the spirit of being hardworking. The teacher looked coldly at the people who popped up. Everyone was so hungry that they were grumbling, but in the face of such food, they really couldn't eat. Many people who came from wealthy families couldn't eat this kind of food. Many people didn't eat. Anyway, if you don't want to eat, then forget it. After breakfast, it was time to go to class again. These adults had already returned some knowledge to the teacher. For some people who weren't very educated, learning these things was simply torture. Listening to the teacher talk about these things was like listening to a heavenly book. Everyone was not in the right state. When the teacher asked questions, they couldn't answer at all. If they couldn't answer, they would be beaten with a ruler and taught a few words. If they didn't study well, they would be a cripple in the future and the dregs of society. If this was a dream, then it was too real. It was very painful and unbearable. After class, it was time for free activities. Everyone started to move bricks and build walls to cultivate the spirit of being hardworking. If there was really no way out, then they would move bricks in the future to familiarize themselves with the work in advance. These parents felt that it was worth it to leave their children in such a place, but it was a little uncomfortable that the pain was happening to them. No, it was very uncomfortable. They were often beaten and scolded, and if they weren't careful, they would attack them personally. Now they had to build walls to cultivate the spirit of being hardworking. This reason was simply impeccable, but why did it feel so bitter? They felt that it was wrong, but they couldn't refute it. What, you can't even do this kind of thing? If you can't even eat and cry, how can you be successful in the future? Doing these things is to cultivate you to be hardworking. Their stomachs were rumbling with hunger, and now they had to build walls with bricks. They were really tired and bitter and wanted to cry. Especially some girls. Now that their core had become female comrades, under the hot sun, carrying bricks and building walls with hungry stomachs, they were on the verge of crying. And on what basis did they have to build walls for free? They had paid for it, but now they were actually allowed to work for free. On what basis? There was no such logic. They had placed their children here to educate the children, not to educate them. Moreover, they didn't say that they would let the children do these things. Chapter 25-33. These parents didn't expect their children to suffer like this in school. Although the children were very unwilling to come here, they were just being willful, lazy, naughty and unbearable. It was good for them to suffer a little. Many of these parents had never built a wall before and didn't even know how to do it. The instructor couldn't bear to look at them. What were they doing? Why did they suddenly become like this? Could they be serious? Could they do things properly? Hurry up and start moving. Some parents held a brick in one hand and a shovel in the other. There was cement beside their feet and they hurriedly built the wall. The cement was everywhere. Clumsy and useless. Things that they didn't understand, things that they didn't know how to do, yet they wanted the children to be omniscient. What are you doing? You're doing it on purpose, aren't you? You're so naughty that you can't be taught. The instructor held the dragon whip and stared at them like a tiger watching its prey. If they didn't do well, he would hit them. In short, the children suddenly returned to how they were when they first entered the school. They were so naughty and unbearable. Previously, they were very skilled in doing this. Now, they were purposely causing trouble. Since you don't want to do it, then run. Whoever sticks his head out will be locked in a small black room. The instructor sized up these people with a sharp gaze, as if he had a headache. What the hell? They were clearly about to succeed. Why did they revert to their old ways? What the hell? Useless scum. These parents were also in despair. Some of them had never done this before. Who knew how to build a house? Everyone lived in a house, but not everyone knew how to build a house. Firstly, they were directly asked to build the wall. They weren't afraid that the wall would collapse in the future. If this was a dream, why didn't they wake up? Moreover, some people gathered together to discuss and realized that everyone had become their own children. In the children's bodies, their thoughts were their own. The pain and despair they suffered were also their own. What was going on? Were they really seeing ghosts? They must be dreaming. Otherwise, such a bizarre thing wouldn't have happened. But it was too real. When the sun shone on their bodies, they felt unbearably hot and thirsty and sweaty. Some people went to the instructors to explain. They explained that they weren't their own children, but their parents. They wanted to leave this place. But in the end, they were determined to be lying. The teachers and instructors didn't believe them. Instead, they sneered and said that they were lying. They were really hopeless to think of such a way to escape. Since your parents sent you here, they have to be responsible for you. All the parents were speechless. You don't have to take responsibility anymore, okay? This kind of thing was really too unbelievable. If it didn't happen to them, they wouldn't believe it. Even if it happened to their child, they would think that the child must be lying. He did it on purpose. This was truly despairing. It was obviously true, but no one in the world believed him. You might even be treated as a lunatic. Take your medicine. Every time they caused a ruckus, they would be brutally suppressed. The price they had to pay was to be covered in scars. They were even locked in a small dark room where they had to take off their clothes. There were beds and toilets in the room, and they had to eat, drink, and defecate in the same room. Only one person would be locked up until he admitted his mistake. Gradually, in order to avoid being punished, the number of times these parents kicked up a fuss decreased. It was obvious that they had learned from their mistakes. Every time he was hit, it hurt so much that he couldn't sleep. Confinement in a small hut was more humiliating. They would take off their clothes for inspection. In short, there was nothing here. Some parents felt especially irritated when their addiction to smoking kicked in. They even asked the instructor for a cigarette to relieve their fatigue. "Hee, you still want to smoke? Why don't you smoke at such a young age? If you don't learn well, you will be the dregs of society in the future. You will pollute the environment and take up space. If you smoke now, you might fight, kill, or rob in the future." As for the parents who wanted to smoke, they were locked in a small dark room. If they wanted to smoke, they had to go to the instructor. Wasn't that courting death? If they didn't punish you, who would be punished? The instructor would be so angry that he would laugh. They were looking down on him. No matter what these people did, they would be severely suppressed. Even if there were any troublemakers who wanted to cause trouble, the others were afraid of being punished. Gradually, they stopped going along with them. However, it was difficult to support a lone tree. There were fewer people who resisted. In the end, they would be obedient. After experiencing Wu Li for a day, everyone hoped that when they woke up, they would realize that it was a dream. Ning Shu stayed in the principal's body. Even if the sun was shining outside, Ning Shu could still faintly hear the sound of thunder. As a result, Ning Shu could only hide in this body. Originally, he wanted to go out and watch the commotion. In the end, he couldn't see anything. Using his mental strength was very tiring. This principal had nothing to do in the office. He didn't do anything else. He was either calling this leader or that leader. Ning Shu had nothing to do. He memorized everything the principal said. When the time was right, he would take over the principal's body to do something. As for these parents, they would probably have to stay here for a while. It was only a day or two. His impression wasn't very deep. Speaking of which, all the tragedies were because the children didn't have the ability to survive. Since they were dependent, they were bound to be disciplined by their parents. They were even objects. If the children could survive, had a source of income, and were already adults, such things wouldn't happen. Some of the habits of these parents, such as smoking, drinking, and playing cards, were things that shouldn't be a problem for adults. Once the children did these things, the sky would fall. Smoking, drinking, and playing cards would be trash when they grew up. They would be bad children. If these adults did these things, they would be bad old people when they got old. After experiencing so many things, Ning Shu deeply felt that only when he had the strength and the power to survive could he not be dominated by others. However, everyone had a huge relationship. We dominated others and were also dominated by others. Children should be at the bottom of this relationship. Almost everyone could dominate children because children couldn't survive. Ning Shu felt that it was really boring to stay here. Fortunately, he still had his mental strength to scan the school situation. Otherwise, he would have wasted so much soul power but couldn't care about the situation of these parents. He felt very regretful. As for getting rid of these principals before he left, how could it be considered a grand and spectacular affair? Ning Shu felt that he was going to leave anyway. He didn't need to worry about the situation when the principal came back. He could do whatever he wanted. After dealing with the principal, this school would probably be leaderless. /BK Chapter 2534. Although such organizations were everywhere, it was better to have one less. Since you can change me into what you want, then I can also change you into what I want. You think I'm not your good child, then I don't think you're my good parent either. Everyone is changing each other. Will there be an organization to change parents one day? However, this was unlikely. After all, filial piety was the most important virtue. Disobeying parents was unfilial and would be severely criticized and attacked by public opinion. Ning Shu saw these people every day. Every night before they went to bed, they prayed that the God in their hearts could save them. When they fell asleep, it was a dream when they woke up. However, when they woke up every day, they still looked like they were about to collapse. Ning Shu almost laughed out loud. Every day, they faced the same cycle. They couldn't even go out of school. The food wasn't good and they had to do many things every day. After leaving school for many years, they had to pick up books again. If they couldn't do the questions well, the teacher would say that their grades weren't good. If they didn't study hard, they were destined to be failures in the future. A series of personal attacks were launched. Fuck, even if my grades are bad, I've lived for so many years. Some of the parents muttered in their hearts. However, they didn't dare to say it out loud because they would be hit. That guy was hit and half of his arm was numb. It was extremely painful. Although they muttered in their hearts, they didn't dare to resist because they were adults. Adults and children knew how to seek benefits and avoid harm. When they knew that it was useless to say it out loud, they would shut their mouths. At least these people didn't dare to resist anymore. Ning Shu felt that these parents would become good parents when they went out. They would be perfect parents. They would be parents that children looked forward to, just like how parents looked forward to their children. The parents who were complaining about the food were hungry. They could only pinch their noses and eat. If they didn't eat, they would be hungry. The feeling of hunger wasn't good at all. Now that it was time to eat, they stopped complaining about the food. They didn't care if there were hormones in the food. They would talk about it after they were full. Other than food, there was nothing else. There were no snacks or fruits. They weren't allowed to eat snacks. They had to study, move bricks, and build walls. If they didn't eat, how would they have the energy to work? If they didn't do well, they would have to run or even be beaten up. In short, life was very difficult. Some girls would hide in their beds and cry at night, saying that they were not daughters at all and why such a thing had happened. Now, he hoped that his family would notice the abnormality and take them back. Every day, he would look forward to it. When it was dark, he would lie in bed in disappointment, hoping that everything would be back to normal when he woke up the next day. If everything went back to normal, the first thing to do was to take the child and leave this place. He couldn't describe what he was feeling. Perhaps it was pain or regret. The pain in his body was constantly reminding him of what had happened. They had become children. What about their children? Had their children become like them and entered their bodies? Would the child come and take them away? Would the child be as expectant and fearful as they were now, waiting for them to come and take them away? Because he was truly in despair, so much so that his heart was filled with hatred. He hated it. Some of the parents were shocked. Was the child hating them for sending him to such a place? No matter how hard he tried, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how hard he tried. These people counted the days on their fingers, and each day felt like a year. Ning Shu was also counting the days because he wanted to see if the children who had become his parents would come and take him away at the first moment. On the 5th day, no children came. Perhaps they were a little confused. They didn't expect to wake up as their own mother and father and escape from the days of torture and humiliation. They were either celebrating or checking out the situation. In any case, they didn't come and take his body away at the first moment. Ning Shu, this is a little awkward. You thought you were good to the child, but they didn't accept you. Because of this, they even lost their weak blood relationship. Ning Shu counted the days, wondering when these children would come. These parents were at least obedient under this kind of high-pressure teaching. Even if they had something in their hearts, they wouldn't say it out loud. Silence was golden. Parents who didn't do well in their studies were now forced to study. It was painless, but if they didn't do well, they would be punished. Moreover, it was a punishment that hurt their self-esteem. Everyone here knew that they were adults and knew that the other party was the child's parent. Such an embarrassing thing made their old faces red. However, the teacher didn't give these people the respect of adults and treated them like children. They tried their best to do well and avoid being punished. They were very careful, afraid that they would be caught doing something and then face punishment. They would have to do high-intensity exercise, be locked in a small room, or even be attacked. Fear of violence, submission to violence. This was so like a dream. It was a nightmare, an awkward and terrifying nightmare. If these parents met in the future, how awkward would it be? The question now was whether this was a dream or reality. If it was reality, what should they do? Would they never be able to go back? Ning Shu noticed that the situation of the client's mother wasn't good. Because of her weak body, no matter what she did, she would be a burden. She was often punished and couldn't answer questions in class. Anyway, that body wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Anyway, he had to use this body's death to do something. Very soon. After that, parents came to the school one after another to pick up their children. Of course, the school didn't allow it. They tactfully told these parents that it wasn't time yet and that they could only leave the school when it was time. Moreover, they had said that the children would be handed over to the school. The school would definitely teach the children well before giving them to them. They had to hand over children who were obedient, sensible, and had excellent grades to their parents. These parents saw that the instructors and teachers who used to beat and scold them were now speaking to them politely. Was it because they were now the financiers and the ones who paid the money? Was that why they were so polite? Some of the more ambitious children wanted to see their own bodies and check out the situation at the same time. Of course, the children who wanted to see their parents were warned in advance not to say anything about the school. Even if they saw their parents, they were not allowed to do so. The parents and children met, but their identities were switched. Parent, you must study hard here and listen to the teachers. Child, brat, what are you talking about? Hurry up and take me out, /BK. Chapter 25-35. No one knew a son better than a father. Parents knew what their children were like, but the children also knew what their parents were like. Some hot-tempered parents wanted to rush up to the children who had taken over their bodies, but they were all stopped by the instructors. Fuck, what's wrong with these children? Shouldn't they be obedient when they see their parents, brats? Parent, please educate our children well. Child, Ning Shu, I'm dying of laughter. Some children came, and some didn't. Perhaps they were afraid to come here, or perhaps they were very afraid because of the change of body, or perhaps there were other reasons. Only a few children came. However, Ning Shu felt that the children who came were gloating over her misfortune. In short, whether these children were gloating or indifferent, they never came to visit. In any case, the relationship between parents and children was almost broken. It was like the parents sent their children here, and the children allowed their parents to stay here. Both sides were hurt, and this rift would only grow bigger. Even when they met, it was a scene of silence. These parents muttered and scolded their children for being unfilial. They were indifferent to seeing their parents suffer here. The girls directly cried. Some people were going to stay here for a year and a half. Would they have to live like this every day? How could this be? Some of the soft-hearted mothers cried in pain at the thought of their children suffering such pain. They wanted to hug their children and wail. In short, they felt very painful. Everything here was very oppressive. They were trembling with fear and caution. Even the slightest thing could make one's heart jump. The first thing that came to mind was whether they would be punished. The physical pain and mental pain made one feel despair and suffocation. Ning Shu took over the principal's body and took control of it. Once she took over the body, Ning Shu immediately heard a loud rumble of thunder. It seemed to be able to shake her soul out of her body. Ning Shu, could she not stare at him all the time? When the time came, these souls would naturally be changed back. Now that she had taken over this body, she had something to do. Ning Shu took out a pen and unscrewed the cap of the fountain pen. At the same time, she was thinking about how to write a sincere and touching apology letter. At the same time, he also dragged out some of the big shots who were hiding behind the scenes. Ning Shu flicked his pen and began to write. He started by saying that he was guilty, and then he talked about the transactions he had made while running the school, as well as the various situations in the school, including the food problem. He wrote about every aspect of the school, including how they treated the students. In the end, he said that he had let down Leader XX, Leader XX, he had let down 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 Leader XX. Ning Shu looked at the letter of apology she had written and felt that it was very simple and touching. She couldn't help but blow her nose that was dripping with snot because she was touched by it. Finally, he dipped it in the red mud and stamped it with his thumb. Then, he put away the letter of apology. However, she felt that the handwriting didn't look like the principal's, so she repeatedly imitated the principal's handwriting. When she felt that it was about right, she copied the letter of apology again. Of course, good works had to be revised repeatedly. As a principal, he had to be very knowledgeable. He couldn't write too crudely. After revising it repeatedly, he scribbled a letter of apology in a slightly sloppy manner. Who could have written a letter of apology so neatly and neatly? After doing all this, Ning Shu waited for the client's body to die. After persisting for almost half a month, she had reached her body's limit. To be honest, to be able to persist until now was a little beyond Ning Shu's expectations. She thought that she could persist for 7 or 8 days. What could be more exciting than a person suddenly dying in front of her? Even if it wasn't her own child, she would still feel sad. One morning, when she was doing morning exercises, the instructor realized that someone didn't come. This kind of absence and lack of punctuality was the most intolerable. How could she be so lazy? The people in the same dormitory didn't know what was going on with her. When the instructor arrived at the dormitory and saw that this bitch was still sleeping under the blanket, he was furious. He lifted the blanket. "How long are you going to sleep for?" However, she didn't move at all. Her mouth was wide open and there were bloodstains around her mouth. Her eyes were wide open and she had a pained expression. Her chest wasn't rising and falling at all. She was obviously not breathing. The instructor's face turned pale and he panicked. He placed his hand on her neck artery and realized that it wasn't beating at all. He was so scared that his face turned even paler. Educating these children was one thing, but now that the child had died, it was another thing. What if someone died? The parents would come and make a scene. The instructor hurriedly went to look for the principal. When Principal Ning Shu heard this, he was very calm. "Don't worry, I have a way." The instructor immediately relaxed. He had heard that Lin Fan had a backer, but he didn't expect him to be able to deal with a death. My child, my child." Early in the morning, a parent came to the school gate to make a scene. It was obviously the client's mother. The client's body was dead and the client's mother naturally had to return to her own body. Moreover, the client's soul wasn't here at all. It didn't enter her mother's body either. At that moment, the client's mother was crying at the school gate. She collapsed on the ground and screamed at the top of her lungs, accusing the school of causing the death of her child. She deeply understood that kind of pain. Her body was clearly very uncomfortable and she wanted to seek medical treatment, but these people didn't agree. That night, she struggled in bed and vomited blood and died. She felt her body slowly becoming cold. In the dead of the night, this feeling was infinitely magnified. In addition to this woman, there were policemen and reporters beside her. The client's mother called the police and wanted to punish the culprit who hurt her daughter. Ning Shu used his mental strength to see her like this. She was already dead, so what was the use of doing this? Moreover, she gave up all of her soul power and directly went to the afterlife. She didn't plan to come back. It also said that the client had cut off the mother-daughter relationship between the two. The guards at the gate didn't let them in, but these were all policemen. They rushed in and found that there was no body in the dormitory. The policeman asked where the body was. Hiding the body. Another crime was added. It was early in the morning and the body didn't have time to be transported out. The school planned to take the body out and send it to the hospital. They would get a certificate from the hospital to prove that the person died in the hospital and not in the school. In the end, they couldn't withstand the police's questioning and told them that the body was in the storage room. There were some sports equipment in the storage room. The client's body was placed on the ground in a big bag and covered with a layer of cushion. /BK. Chapter 2536. The reporters swarmed over to take photos, but they were all stopped by the police. Then, the body was carried away. When the mother of the client saw her daughter's body, she cried out loud. She thought that her daughter would return to her body after she returned to her body. She didn't expect her daughter to really die. Was everything she had experienced before real or just a dream? Her daughter was dead. The mother of the client pushed and beat up the teachers and instructors, asking them to compensate her daughter. The instructors and teachers didn't fight back and allowed her to hit their faces. Her nails scratched their faces. It was burning and painful. She wasn't feeling well. Why didn't you let her see a doctor? Why didn't you let her see a doctor? She already said that she wasn't feeling well. Compensate my daughter. This matter attracted a lot of attention. As the principal, Ning Shu didn't appear. Anyway, they could just continue to cause trouble. The autopsy results were out. Her neck was damaged and she couldn't get treatment. Hence, she dragged it on until she died. The mother of the client came to the school every day to cause trouble. The school couldn't operate normally anymore. Seeing a child die just like that, the parents felt a chill run down their spines. They knew all too well what had happened inside. Not long after this incident, the souls of these children and their parents were exchanged. These parents also came to the school to cause trouble, saying what happened to their children in the school. If they didn't experience it personally, they would be fine. In his heart, he was just glad that his child was fine. However, after experiencing all this and experiencing it personally, the anger in his heart had to be vented. In any case, the entire school was done for. Ning Shu took the confession letter and climbed to the top floor. She could hear the rumbling of thunder beside her ears. Ning Shu raised his finger. Didn't the souls already exchange back? Why was there still thunder? They probably wanted to destroy her. Since they could do such a heaven-defying thing once, they might do it a second time. It's the principal. Why did the principal climb to the top? Not good. Is the principal going to jump off the building? The teachers and instructors first thought that the principal couldn't withstand the pressure of the public and wanted to jump off the building. If he jumped off the building and died, everything would be over. But what about them? Was the principal going to abandon them? Didn't jumping off the building mean that the principal admitted to his crimes? They would be implicated. Some people hurriedly ran down the building to ask Ning Shu, the shortest principal in history, to calm down. Death wouldn't solve the problem. Some people called the police. The police had arrived. Regardless, there were also reporters who had caught wind of the news. The originally empty school became crowded again. There were students, parents, media reporters, police officers, and firefighters. When Ning Shu saw the crowd below, he smiled with satisfaction. If he jumped down in front of so many people, he wouldn't be able to hide it. I am doing penance now. If there's anything, we can talk about it. You have to calm down. The police officer who counseled Ning Shu reached out his hand. Ning Shu walked over. Ning Shu immediately stretched out Kang's hand. Don't come over. If you come over again, I'll jump down. I really know how to jump. I'm not lying. Okay, I won't go over. Don't get agitated. The policeman immediately stopped. You have to think about your family. Ning Shu burst into tears. He covered his face and shouted, I'm a criminal. If I'm caught, I'll definitely go to jail. I'm a high-level intellectual. I can't be so shameful. The police officers were speechless. Suddenly, he did not know how to persuade him. What intellectual? He was just a beast dressed in human clothing. Everyone makes mistakes. You just have to correct them and admit your mistakes. Ning Shu immediately raised his head and asked, so I'm not guilty if I admit my mistakes? Police, if he said he was guilty, he would probably jump down after being provoked. If he was right, there were so many media reporters, parents, and students below. Ning Shu immediately said, I know. I'm guilty. As he spoke, he moved to the side. Ning Shu said to 2333 in his heart, when I jump down, my soul will leave my body. Hurry up and teleport me away. Otherwise, the lightning will strike me. He had already lost so much soul power. If he was struck by lightning again, damn, his soul would be so weak that it could be blown away by the wind. 2333 replied with an, oh, to show that he understood. Ning Shu reminded him again, don't be distracted. I think once I leave my body, the lightning will strike me. He felt that the lightning above his head was already preparing for a big move. 2333, don't worry about me. Ning Shu, what if I'm more scared? I know that these things can't be hidden. Now that the school is in trouble, they don't care about me anymore. What a waste of the money I sent over. Ning Shu shouted as he was about to break down. No, they don't care about you. Don't be agitated. Everything can be discussed. The police were very tired. Ning Shu sneered, do you know who I'm talking about? Police. I don't know. If you don't know, then why would they care about me? Ning Shu took out the letter of apology that he had written before and blew his nose again. He said awkwardly, if I use this, will it reduce my sins? Take it and let us see. I'm not going. You're trying to trick me. I won't fall for it. Then I'll go take it. The police moved towards Ning Shu step by step and took the letter from Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu immediately said, you go. See if you can reduce my sins. Ning Shu took a picture of the handwritten letter. After he died, an anonymous account would regularly post it on the internet. Can I be pardoned? Ning Shu asked the police. The police looked at the letters of apology with a heavy expression. And some of the letters mentioned names. It was a bit difficult to deal with. I know. Ning Shu's expression was very agitated. He was already at the edge and was about to fall. Ning Shu reminded 2333, I'm going to jump. I'll count to 3. Start. 1. 2. 3. Ning Shujing jumped down the stairs, and screams could be heard. When he was about to touch the ground, Ning Shu's soul instantly left his body. He didn't want to feel such pain. With a bang, his body hit the floor. The loud sound was like a balloon exploding. Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the headmaster's broken body in broad daylight, almost turning it into charcoal. Ning Shu saw it and almost peed his pants. Fortunately, he ran quickly. The moment his soul left his body, the lightning wanted to kill him. But the principal's soul suffered. Fortune doesn't come in pairs. Misfortune doesn't come alone. He was dead. Now even his soul was weakened by the lightning. He might even be turned into ashes. Everyone was dumbfounded, and the screams in their throats were blocked. They never thought that they would be struck by lightning after jumping off a building. This was really unprecedented, /BK. Chapter 2537. After jumping off the building, he was struck by lightning in broad daylight. After being stunned for a short while, the reporters started taking photos like crazy. After all, this was quite a gimmick. Although science was advocated now, this kind of thing was only possible because the heavens had eyes. Being struck by lightning after death, it would definitely be a hot topic. Police, this guy is too impatient. He's such a straightforward person. He jumped down in such a hurry. Moreover, the names written on the letter of apology are all leaders. With his jump, some things became even more complicated. What was this called? This was called suicide. Not only did he die, but he also put a label on some people's heads. This matter couldn't be publicized, but it didn't seem right to not publicize it either. In short, his jump ended everything. However, some things became unverifiable. If he was still alive, he could change his words. But now that he was dead, what could he say? The police kept the letter. This kind of thing was better left to the higher-ups to handle. These people were not something a small police officer could handle. As for the letter, it would not be publicized. When these parents and students saw the principal's body turned into charcoal, they all felt very happy. They felt that all the pain and grievances they had suffered had been vented. He must have done too much evil and was struck by lightning after death. Let's see who the heavens will spare. The client's mother kept pounding her chest and crying. Even if the principal was dead, her daughter still couldn't come back. She was dead. In the past, she had expected better from her daughter. She hoped that her daughter would be better and become better. But she had never thought of letting her die. Why did her daughter die when everyone else was fine? The client's mother grabbed the instructor's collar and shouted hysterically, "You caused her death. You didn't let her see the doctor. You will get retribution. You will get retribution." The principal's death had a psychological impact on the instructors and teachers. They were speechless. Then, they heard the parents' complaints. They kept saying that they were not qualified to be teachers and wanted to lodge a complaint against them. The teachers and instructors were in a daze. Some of the instructors said that they were the ones who sent their children here. This was the teaching method here. If there was anyone to blame, they could only blame themselves. Why didn't they discipline their own children and send them here? When something happened, they blamed others. Anyway, this school was already disbanded. Since the principal was dead, they might have to compensate a large sum of money. After all, the child was dead. These parents were speechless. They felt that their children should be more strict, but they didn't expect it to be like this. If this continued, he might die from overwork at such a young age due to excessive exercise and fatigue. They weren't adults yet, but they had to do adult work, such as moving bricks and building walls. It was said to be training their hard-working spirit. However, no one knew whether this was to exploit the students' labor force or if they were really that selfless. This matter quickly spread on the internet and even became a joke. Cursing someone was like jumping off a building and being struck by lightning. Ning Shu's letter of apology was not made public. In fact, it was normal for it not to be made public. Ning Shu deeply repented in it. He felt sorry for the people who had trained him to support him. At the same time, he also wrote down the names of all these people on the paper. They were all people with interests, so this kind of thing definitely couldn't be known by the public. However, a few days after the incident, when the news was about to die down, the registered account published the invitation. There were always people who spread all kinds of propaganda, but these things were quickly deleted. Although they were deleted, many people had already taken screenshots. In short, this matter had already caused a storm on the internet. In any case, Ning Shu, as the principal, would be discussed for a period of time. A lot of things had been covered up. When the dust was lifted and the sun was seen again, it might not be revealed. It might also be buried again. As for the names that Ning Shu wrote on the letter of apology, even if he really couldn't do anything to them, there was still a stain on these people's records. Who knew when it would explode? However, it wasn't possible to climb up the ranks again. Because of this stain, if they were attacked or even stood on the wrong side, they would be cleaned up very quickly. That was a battlefield where people didn't see blood. Although it caused a commotion, there were still some parents who didn't think much of it. No matter what they did, there might be danger. If they could get into an accident while driving, then wouldn't they be on the road? If others choked to death while eating, then they wouldn't be able to eat. Some of them were special cases. Of course, this had nothing to do with Ning Shu. Even if he knew, he could only sneer. He was incompetent and had to rely on such an institution, believe in it, and worship it as a god. He was afraid that without such a school, he wouldn't be able to control his children. In fact, everything could be solved with a word, and that was money. When the children had independent financial ability, the parents would no longer be the masters of the children. However, this was basically impossible. 70 to 80% of the troubles in this world were caused by living conditions and resources. Just like how Ning Shu felt that he was poor and didn't have a world that could save him from being erased. These were all the troubles of survival. Ning Shu looked at his soul and sighed. Doing a mission was not enough to make ends meet. The souls that the entrusted person gave were definitely not enough to make up for the losses of this mission. The main thing was that there was no power in that world. He could have absorbed the power of the sun flame, but his body's condition wasn't good. He couldn't even absorb the power of the sun flame, let alone lightning. If he ran upstairs and roared at the sky, he would be struck by lightning and would immediately die. He had no choice but to use the power of the soul. He poured the source of the soul on the peerless martial arts. This time, there was a lot more source of the soul because 2333 sent a lot of soul fluid to the main system to purify. Soul fluid was the liquid formed by the entire soul, including the power of the soul and the source of the soul. Although it was gray in color, there was the source of the soul in it. Ning Shu touched the peerless martial arts and felt that there were fewer cracks on the peerless martial arts. He guessed that the quantitative change had reached a qualitative change. After pouring in so much source of the soul, there was no effect before. However, a change had a significant effect. Ning Shu looked at the peerless martial arts over and over again. He really felt that there were fewer cracks, but he suspected that it was his illusion. He asked 2333, I think there are fewer cracks in the world. 2333, if you think there are fewer cracks, then there are fewer cracks. Ning Shu, I'm seriously asking you. Ning Shu was too lazy to ask 2333. He began to sit cross-legged and absorb the power of the soul. This time, he absorbed the power of the soul fluid and the entrusted person's soul. This time, he didn't need to feed it to the world of reincarnation. Now that his soul was so weak, he felt so depressed. He absorbed all the power of the soul in one go. He guessed that there was a lot of power of the soul, so it took him a while to absorb. Chapter 2538. Ning Shu opened his eyes and touched his body. He felt that his soul was much stronger. The wall was much tougher than before. Previously, it had felt like jelly, but now, it felt like hard muscles. It was the first time he absorbed so much soul power. It was really satisfying. Ning Shu stretched and checked the mission completion rate. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27. Rank, Super Mission Enforcer. Scorecard, 31725 Soul, 282 Life, 242 Wisdom, 302 Luck, 322 Charm, 232 Mental Power, 314 Martial Power, 292 Aptitude, 294 Faith, 60614941500 Merit, 0 Soul Strength, 10410 Privilege, 1 Pure Heart, None Comprehended Law, Water Law, Wood Law. Constructed World, Reincarnation World. Tools, Calm Aura, Heart Setting Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet. 2 Honorary Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Fighting Technique, Intermediate Level Poison Technique, Beginner Level Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Level Code Programming, Beginner Level Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Level Cooking Skill, Intermediate Level Embroidery Skill, Trash Hypnosis Aura, Mother of the World, Model Worker Sister, Leader Aura, Best Friend for Life. Healer of the Dying, Founding Female General, Beauty of the Law, Blood Clan's Nemesis, Cross-Race Communication, Heart of the Brave, Bloodthirsty Tyrant. Heart of Peace and Joy, Luck Aura. Complete the Mission Enforcer's Wish. Quest Completion Rate, 100%. Quest Rewards obtained, 25 point cards, 20 attribute points, 80% soul power, 15,000 faith power, 40% soul power, 40% soul power, 40% soul power, 40% soul source, Lucky Blessing Aura. The reward was not bad. He received an aura. Luck Aura. Was this really useful? Ning Shu felt that it had been quite bumpy. He hoped that it would be useful. She was really a pitiful little girl. This mission was barely worth it. It was probably a bit of a loss, but it wasn't by much. It was just a little more than 20 attribute points and 25 general points. It was just that he didn't have any more merit points. They were all used to buy star stones. It was good to have no money. What should he do without taxes? Did he really have to sell the soul fluid? It was easy to sell it, but it would be difficult to buy it back in the future. He might not even be able to buy it. Ning Shu stared at the points on the attribute panel. It seemed like these points were completely useless. He opened the system exchange store. These points could be used to exchange for some things. They were either not very good or very good. They required tens of millions of points. Ning Shu felt that these points cards were a bit like discount coupons. He didn't really care. Closing the stats panel, Ning Shu stroked the peerless martial art back and forth. There were definitely fewer cracks now. He wondered if the law of nothingness was still bubbling. Ning Shu entered the peerless martial art and saw a layer of white mist floating above the law of nothingness. It was still bubbling, but it would occasionally bubble. Ning Shu wanted to reach in and feel the temperature of the water. However, she quickly stopped this suicidal thought. What if the law of nothingness devoured her? She couldn't even find a place to cry. He really didn't know what to do with it. The star rock was extremely expensive. If he did it again, Ning Shu felt that he would be at the end of his rope. Because of this thing, he had spent so many resources and even destroyed the world. Originally, the peerless martial art should have a smooth life and become an ordinary world. But now, it had become like this. Bitter. Such a big piece of star rock should be able to last for a while. He would go to the 9 Palace Mountain to see if there were any more of those purple stones. It would be even better if there were mines for these stones. With such a high temperature, even if there were mines, Ning Shu felt that there wouldn't be any plants around the mines. Seeing the law of nothingness bubbling in the cracks on the peerless martial art lessening, Ning Shu was still in a good mood. Was it because of the lucky aura? It was probably one of the reasons. However, if she didn't do anything and didn't repair the peerless martial art, how could there be fewer cracks? It was because she was cautious and conscientious. Ning Shu used the peerless martial art and opened the black hole to go to the world of reincarnation. 2333, you're leaving again. Aren't you going to do the mission? Didn't I just finish the mission? I need to rest, Ning Shu said confidently. 2333, he was going all out just to do a mission. The time he spent doing it was even longer than the time he spent on the mission. 2333 really wanted to explode. Do you know how many missions are piled up here? It's okay. Take your time. Ning Shu wasn't worried at all. Also, there's still soul fluid waiting for us to get. Don't tell me we don't want to get soul fluid because of the mission. Also, doing missions was tiring. He needed to rest. 2333 I've been successfully convinced. Ning Shu walked into the black hole and entered the dark world of reincarnation. He looked at the vast and boundless world. Take your time. Don't be in a hurry to split. He was afraid that if he kept splitting, he would fail and become a pile of space trash. He couldn't even pick up the trash. How sad. He walked past the Thunder Kirin and went to take a look at the rebirth pool. Ning Shu was worried about the rebirth pool. He was afraid that something would happen to the rebirth pool. After all, many worlds were depending on the rebirth pool to survive. Bonehead Li Si was still squatting beside the rebirth pool. He was so scared that some souls didn't even dare to jump into the rebirth pool. Ning Shu walked over and said, "There's no use for you to guard here. Even if he wants to come back here, he'll need a few decades." Li Si sighed. What if he dies halfway? Ning Shu, is it really okay to curse your master like that? Li Si, you've changed. I just want to guard here forever, Li Si said. How can others go to reincarnate if you guard here? Ning Shu couldn't help but say. If no one jumped in, how could there be any soul power? Oh, then I'll stay further away. Li Si stepped back. Then, he sat down and stared at the rebirth pool. Then, he said to Ning Shu, "Great aunt, do you think I should reincarnate with young master?" Ning Shu, forget it. You'll probably be a skeleton in the future. His soul couldn't come out anymore. He didn't want to dirty the rebirth pool if he jumped in. Li Si was depressed. If he knew this would happen, he would have left this body. Now that he was a skeleton, did it mean that he couldn't reincarnate anymore? In the future, young master would reincarnate continuously. He would guard here and watch young master reincarnate again and again. It was too cruel. Chapter 2539. Li Si was tortured by the various miserable scenes he imagined. In the end, he covered his face in grief. Ning Shu really could not see any sadness on Bonehead's face. Hence, he could not empathize with his sadness at all. Stay away. You're too scary, Ning Shu said. There's still ghosts. Don't look down on each other. Ning Shu, what he said made sense. Ning Shu checked the rebirth pool. Seeing that there were no problems, he entered the second level. Ning Shu went to find the earthworm first and gave it some soul stones to eat. It must have starved to death after such a long time. Ning Shu went to the slums. He found that Yilin and the earthworm's house had collapsed. It was a mess on the ground. Where did the man and the earthworm go? Where did they go? Ning Shu hid in the city and looked around. He found that there were a lot more people in this city. There seemed to be many refugees. Could it be that the people from the previous two cities had all come to this city? Ning Shu, this was a little awkward. He had brought her out, but in the end, she ran to another city. It was also possible that they had been robbed by another city. Where did the earthworm run to? Ning Shu wandered the streets. There were many guards in the city. They patrolled again and again. There were also some guards. There was a wanted poster on the wall. Ning Shu went closer to take a look. Looking left and right, it seemed to be her. As for the words, Ning Shu did not recognize them. It seemed that she was wanted again. It was normal to be wanted. When she destroyed the city, she did not hide her face. They were probably afraid that she would destroy another city. This time, the people in the city were very vigilant. They were afraid that she would destroy another city. Ning Shu looked at the person on the wanted poster. It was not nice at all. It was too rough. He could only tell that it was a woman. Where did that brat Yelin go? Ning Shu simply removed the barrier. Her ant-colored dress was especially eye-catching. The patrolling guards suddenly saw a red-clothed woman appear. She was exactly the same as the one on the wanted poster. She had watery makeup on between her eyebrows, was dressed in bright red, and was barefooted. When the guards saw Ning Shu, they didn't dare to use force. They could only send people back to inform stronger people to come over. He followed Ning Shu from afar. Ning Shu swaggered around the streets, occasionally looking at the peddler stalls to see if there was anything good. There were some rare heavenly treasures and earthly treasures, as well as rouge and face powder. Ning Shu walked to a corner. Yi Lin pulled her into a courtyard and closed the door. Are you crazy? Can't you see that you're wanted? Yi Lin said anxiously. Ning Shu sized up a deserted courtyard full of weeds. Is this where you live now? No one lives here, so I live here, Yi Lin said. Quick, give me soul stones to eat. I'm starving to death. The earthworm crawled out of the ground. Quick, quick. Ning Shu, are you really hungry? Why do I feel like you've gained weight? The earthworm, I don't think so. How am I fat? Ning Shu rubbed her chin and sized up the earthworm. Yi Lin seemed to like the earthworm very much. He said to Ning Shu, it's very powerful. Ning Shu glanced at the earthworm indifferently and asked, how so? It can kill people with a single bite, and it seems to like soul fluid very much. Every time we attack a guard general, we steal his spirit. Istyle equals color, spirit, it's eaten all the soul fluid. Ning Shu chuckled at the earthworm, saying that it was hungry, but it had gained weight. Ning Shu said to Yi Lin, don't feed it so much in the future. It can't gain weight. It's not good for the body, and it's easy to get 3 types of high. Yi Lin, the earthworm, wow, that despicable woman is going to deduct its rations again. If you have more soul fluid next time, keep it and give it to me, Ning Shu said. Yi Lin didn't suspect anything else. Besides, he didn't need soul fluid. Since she needed it, he would give it to her. He said, I still have some here. Yi Lin took out a spirit tool. It's full of soul fluid. The earthworm's bean-sized eyes stared at the spirit tool, full of despair. Once something fell into this woman's hands, it could forget about getting it back. Why was this guy so stupid? Ning Shu took the spirit tool and shook it twice. She felt that there was quite a lot of soul fluid inside. How many guards did you rob? Quite a few. We worked together with it. Yi Lin raised his chin at the earthworm. Ning Shu very naturally took the soul fluid and asked, how's your cultivation? I've already cultivated an aura form. Oh, what's an aura form? Ning Shu asked. Vines. Vines? Yes. Yi Lin lowered his head. Ning Shu didn't expect that Yi Lin's aura form would be vines. Let me see. Okay. Yi Lin released the vines. Many vines extended from the vines. Ning Shu frowned. Yi Lin immediately put away the vines and asked cautiously, Master, is there a problem with my aura form? Ning Shu said, why imitate me? You can't control so many vines. Your body can clearly form an aura form most suitable for you. Because the vines are powerful. I heard that you destroyed 2 cities with your vines, Yi Lin said. Ning Shu, any power is very powerful when it reaches the extreme. You're doing this on purpose. You're dispersing your aura form to form an aura suitable for you, Ning Shu said calmly. Why? The youth's face showed a stubborn expression. Just because you're a vine, I can't form one. Aren't you a bit stupid? You can clearly create your own. Do you want to live in my shadow in the future? Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Dispersing your aura form the aura you want. Don't think about the vines anymore. Let nature take its course. You only see how powerful the vines are, but you don't know the power added to the vines. I've said what I should say. It's your choice. I won't interfere. Ning Shu felt that he had said everything to this cheap disciple. If he insisted on doing this, Ning Shu couldn't say anything. Yi Lin lowered his head and didn't say anything. Earthworm said, "You'd better not talk about him. This child is a bit bitter." "I'm bitter too," Ning Shu said. Earthworm, haha. Yi Lin lowered his head and didn't say anything. Ning Shu didn't say anything either. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. After a while, Yi Lin raised his head and looked at Ning Shu. He asked, "Do you really think that the vines I form aren't good?" "No, it's very restrictive on you. You can clearly create a new path that belongs to you. Why do you have to do this? Isn't it good to follow your heart?" Ning Shu asked in return. He wanted to sigh. Yi Lin said, "Oh," and didn't say anything. Ning Shu heard a lot of footsteps outside. It should be the guards outside who were chasing after them. Chapter 25-40. The outside of the courtyard was surrounded by guards, and there were many experts floating in the air, staring at Ning Shu and Yi Lin in the courtyard. Suddenly facing so many people and being exposed, Yi Lin felt a little uneasy. He had always been secretly dealing with the guard generals. Even if the guard generals in the city died and disappeared, no one knew that it was him who did it. He liked this feeling. Now that he was exposed, how could he secretly do bad things in the future? Ning Shu swung his ponytail and asked with a grin, "What are you doing? So many people have come to welcome me." Yi Lin glanced at his master from the corner of his eyes. Even at this time, he could still smile and be so sloppy. Having strength was so awesome, so relaxed. Ning Shu waved his hand at these people. "Come down and talk. You guys float in the air. My neck is sore from looking up." Everyone, they weren't here to chat. In just a short while, the guard generals and guards had already surrounded the courtyard layer by layer. The atmosphere was very tense, ready to explode at any moment. Even so, these people still felt that it was not safe, even with so many people. Even thousands of soldiers and horses could not deal with a woman. "Why are you here?" The young man in the lead, Ning Shu, asked. Ning Shu put his hand on Yi Lin's shoulder. "Of course I'm here to see my disciple. This is my disciple. All these years, because of some things, I didn't take care of this disciple much. I allowed his family to be killed by the guard generals as a result." Ning Shu said indifferently. "Fortunately, my disciple was not killed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to find him." Ning Shu said indifferently. Everyone glanced at the swarthy beggar. They could not see what he looked like. With so many guard generals, who knew which one killed this boy's parents? Moreover, in this city, everyone was the property of the city. It was normal to kill them. The only thing that was not normal was that this boy's master was someone who destroyed cities and played around. They could not figure out her personality at all. "Of course we're willing to compensate this young friend. You can state any conditions you have, and we'll try our best to fulfill them," the man said. It would be best if they could protect the city by paying a price. It would be best if they did not destroy the city like the other two cities, leaving only ruins behind. Building a city required a huge amount of manpower, resources, and time. Ning Shu and Yi Lin asked, "What kind of compensation do you want?" Yi Lin was a little flabbergasted. Normally, these people were high and mighty. They were the kings of the city and ruled over everyone. But now, they were showing weakness. He wanted to use compensation to eliminate the battleiers. Was this because he was strong? Yi Lin felt his blood boiling. His face was flushed, and his eyes were bright. He also wanted to become such a terrifying existence. Yi Lin's lips trembled. He was speechless. Ning Shu said to these people, "It seems my disciple still hasn't let go of this matter. His family was killed. This kind of grief is not something he can walk out of in a short period of time." Everyone wanted to roll their eyes. Since it had been a few years, why couldn't he walk out of it? Moreover, in the city, he should know his own fate. These people's lives and souls belonged to the city. Their lives and deaths were in the hands of the ruler. Sooner or later, they would die. A spirit body with a strong soul sized up Yi Lin and said, "You must have killed quite a few guard generals and spirit bodies." Yi Lin immediately shook his head. "I didn't. I didn't kill anyone. Don't deny it. I've heard that you have a pet that can turn souls into fools and scatter them." Yi Lin's actions were under the watchful eyes of some people. If not for Ning Shu's sudden appearance, Yi Lin would have been captured. Killing guard generals and using soul-seizing liquid was unforgivable. However, the city had more important things to do. This red-clothed woman who liked to destroy the city had done the important things first. Then, she would slowly deal with these clowns. Who would have thought that this brat would suddenly become the red-clothed woman's disciple? Was there anything more ridiculous than this? This matter would probably have to be settled like this. When the time came for a fight, the city would be the one to suffer. This woman would use vines to destroy every inch of the city. She was so crazy that she wouldn't even let water in the well. Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. "What? Now you want to slander my disciple for killing people and then take the initiative in the negotiations. Moreover, have you asked me if I really want to negotiate with you? Anyway, I'm not happy. Destroying the city is nothing. Senior, you must be joking. Since he's your disciple, he definitely wouldn't do such a thing." Bullshit. It was normal for people who destroyed cities and killed people. Like teacher, like disciple. Both of them were crazy. Crazy people who liked to kill people. Ning Shu, then why are you looking for me? We're here to ask Senior what you're here for. If you have time, come to the city lord's residence for a meal. Okay, then prepare well. Ning Shu said without any trace of politeness. Then we await Senior's arrival. These people and guards retreated like the tide. "Master, are we really going to eat?" Yi Lin asked. Ning Shu nodded. "Of course, why wouldn't we go?" Ning Shu sized up Yi Lin. Now, not to mention those people who didn't know what Yi Lin looked like, she didn't know either. Yi Lin felt uneasy being sized up by Ning Shu. Ever since he knew that his master was so cruel, Yi Lin felt a sense of admiration for this cheap master of his. "Go take a bath and tidy up. We'll go to the banquet tonight," Ning Shu said. "Do we really have to go?" Yi Lin asked. He was very worried about the safety of the two people. "If we go directly, won't we be catching a turtle in a jar?" "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Go take a bath." "Forget it, let's go to the bathhouse." Ning Shu opened the courtyard door. Yi Lin helplessly followed behind Ning Shu. Ning Shu bought some clothes and paid with soul fluid. Soon, soul fluid would disappear from history. Yi Lin and Earthworm entered the bathhouse. Ning Shu waited at the door. Not far away, there were people watching them. They were probably sent by those people. However, they didn't dare to get close. They only dared to watch from afar. Ning Shu ignored these people and did what he needed to do. Yi Lin's body was probably too dirty. After washing for a long time, he still didn't come out. When he came out, he was already a thin youth with a yellow complexion. His eyes were pitch black, and his body was firm. As for the scene that Ning Shu imagined after washing clean and looking like carved jade, it didn't happen. Originally, he thought that since he was favored by the heavens, he should be handsome. However, his face was yellow and thin. However, his facial features were quite good, BK. Chapter 25-41. That was true. Begging for a living was not a normal life. He should be a good-looking young man after he was nursed back to health. It was reasonable to say that cultivating would make the body in the best condition. He had already cultivated the chi form, but he was still so thin and weak. Yi Lin took a comfortable bath. Seeing his master staring at him like that, and a woman at that, he was already a young man. He naturally knew the difference between a man and a woman. Ning Shu forcibly made Yi Lin's face turn red. Ning Shu shook his head and said, "You don't look good." Yi Lin. Clang. What was it that broke? Ning Shu chose royal blue clothes. He thought he would be a handsome young man, but he looked like he had just recovered from a serious illness. Earthworm had taken a hot bath and was lying comfortably on Yi Lin's shoulder. He felt the young man's body suddenly stiffen. "I think you look good. You were so dirty before, but now you're so clean," Earthworm said. Unfortunately, Yi Lin couldn't hear the earthworm's words. Ning Shu brought Yi Lin to choose a new set of clothes. This kind of sapphire blue clothes could only be worn when he could hold it down. Back in the deserted courtyard, Ning Shu sat on a stone bench and condensed a mirror with water in front of him. "You haven't seen yourself before, right? Look. You're yellow and skinny. Have you ever seen an expert look like a refugee?" Yi Lin looked at himself in the mirror. He wondered how the water-like mirror was formed. His master was more powerful than he had imagined. He always felt that she was a little mysterious. "Do you see it?" "Yes." "Do I look good?" "Very good." Ning Shu. "Do you know why?" Yi Lin shook his head. "Release the vines and wrap them around the house," Ning Shu said. "Okay." Yi Lin released the vines. At first it was fine, but as more and more vines appeared and stretched further and further, his expression became a little painful. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. These chi force vines didn't listen to his commands at all. They either didn't move, or they were in a mess. This was because Yi Lin's control was not good enough. "Alright, put it away," Ning Shu said. Yi Lin also seemed to know that he had done something wrong. He lowered his head and did not say anything. "Do you know what the reason is? You can't control them now. Your spiritual power isn't strong enough to control these vines. You need to control every single one of them. You're overdrawing your spiritual power. When your spiritual power can't hold on any longer, you'll begin to overdraw your soul. Now you look yellow and emaciated, but after a while, you'll become an old man." Cultivation could allow a person to maintain their best condition and even maintain their body at a certain age and state. However, it was rare to see a situation like Yi Lin's. "Then, Master, do I really have to disperse the chi form again?" Yi Lin asked, somewhat unwilling to give up. "Why are you so insistent on this thing?" Ning Shu was somewhat amused. "They are of the same origin." Ning Shu was speechless. "Let me tell you, when I had a body, the chi form I cultivated was a dragon, not a vine. Everyone's chi form is different. Who told you that it has to be a vine?" Yi Lin was speechless. He suddenly felt so desperate that he wanted to hit someone. "Disperse the chi form." Come here, I'll disperse it for you. Seeing that this guy had given him some soul fluid, it was just a matter of convenience. Yi Lin approached Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "It hurts a little." Before Yi Lin could react, he felt as if his dantian had been smashed by something. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and the meridians all over his body bulged. A drop of water in Yi Lin's dantian set off stormy waves, forming a water dragon. The vines retreated step by step and finally dissipated. Although it didn't last long, Yi Lin was already covered in blood. Blood was seeping out of all the pores on his body. Yi Lin felt that his body was twitching in pain. It was so painful. A drop of emerald green liquid merged into Yi Lin's body and repaired Yi Lin's damaged body. It was a very comfortable and cool feeling. Soon, Yi Lin recovered. Ning Shu set up a spirit-gathering array around him to absorb the surrounding spirit qi. "Condense it again," Ning Shu said. Yi Lin sat cross-legged and absorbed the spirit qi. It was almost too late for this transformation. Yi Lin's expression was a little painful. Ning Shu said, "The qi form is not for you to choose. It will be generated automatically." It was not certain whether he wanted to form a particularly awesome and flashy one. Yi Lin opened his eyes and sighed. He looked a little desperate. Judging from his expression, he was probably not satisfied with the qi form. However, Ning Shu still wanted to rub salt on his wound. "What did you form?" Yi Lin's lips moved, but he didn't speak. Ning Shu directly produced vines to hurt Yi Lin. Moo. A sound that sounded like a cow's moo was heard. A strong cow with two sharp horns, Ning Shu, rushed over. It turned out to be a cow. A cow was not bad. Yi Lin withdrew his qi form and didn't want to speak. Ning Shu pointed to the wall. "It should be a strength type. Try to hit the wall. When it is strong in the future, it should be very powerful to hit mountains, dig mountains, and trample people with its hooves." Yi Lin's expression became a little better. He let the cow hit the wall. The qi cow's horns crashed into the courtyard wall, causing it to collapse. In the future, the qi form will become bigger and bigger. There will be a lot of room for growth, Ning Shu said. It could also become a mount, like a giant dragon. However, it wasn't as flashy as a qilin, phoenix, or giant dragon. Yi Lin wasn't very happy. Even if it formed a chicken, it would become stronger. "Alright, we should go to the banquet." Ning Shu stood up and stretched. When the second level was resolved, he wanted to go to the third level to take a look. He wondered what the third level was like. Yi Lin followed beside Ning Shu. He couldn't help but ask, "Why do we have to go? Isn't it better to just destroy the city?" Sometimes, fighting is really tiring. It also used up the power of the law of wood. But sometimes, only fighting can solve problems, Yi Lin said. "Do you know how to be polite before resorting to force? If we start fighting, it won't be cool," Ning Shu said. As the two of them spoke, a group of guards came over. Ning Shu cupped his hands and said that they were here to welcome them. The palace between the cities was very big and very luxurious. It was even more luxurious than ancient imperial palaces. Yes, there must be a lot of soul fluid inside. It was Yi Lin's first time coming to such a luxurious place. He was especially shocked, but he tried his best to pretend to be calm. He secretly sized up Ning Shu. Suddenly, he wondered what kind of person his master was. Even in the face of such riches, his expression was indifferent. His background was really mysterious. It was likely that everyone in the second level of Nine Palace Mountain who knew of Ning Shu's existence was digging up Ning Shu's background. However, Ning Shu was a person without a background. He was a person who appeared out of thin air. /BK Chapter 2542 A large group of people greeted Ning Shu at the entrance of the palace. There were many people, and their auras were all very powerful. This was a warning to intimidate her. Yi Lin was obviously intimidated by this aura, but he quickly came back to his senses and kept silent with a cold expression. When faced with an embarrassing situation, one only needed to keep a cold expression and not speak. "Senior, please take a seat." These people were very polite as they let Ning Shu enter the palace. Ning Shu grunted and sat down. Yi Lin sat beside Ning Shu, and the others also sat according to their status. As soon as they sat down, the sound of stringed and woodwind instruments rang out, and beautiful dancers entered the palace and started dancing. Ning Shu just looked at them with a cold expression. As for the things in front of him, Ning Shu would not eat them, as they would pollute his soul. The jug was filled with soul fluid. It seemed to be quite pure, but to Ning Shu, it was still impure. Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the dancers dancing enchantingly. These beauties were really beautiful. If they were in the modern world, they would all be big stars. Seeing that Ning Shu was not eating or drinking the soul fluid, a person stood up with a wine cup and said to Ning Shu, "Senior, this is the purest soul fluid in our city. Please try it." Then, as if to prove that there was no problem with the soul fluid, he drank it in one gulp. Ning Shu looked at the person who drank the soul fluid in shock. "You have a body, but you still drink soul fluid?" When everyone heard her ask such a superficial question, they wondered if this person had come out of the mountains or forests. However, they still answered seriously. What if this person went berserk again? From the information they had received, this woman was really very willful. Soul fluid can be used by both spirit bodies and cultivators, someone explained. Does absorbing soul fluid help a cultivator's cultivation? Ning Shu had a frightened expression on her face. Wasn't this just messing around? She knew how to play. There were no cultivators on the first level who could absorb soul fluid with soul stones, but the people of this world drank soul fluid as a drink. Everyone, what a country bumpkin. If they were not afraid that this person would destroy the city, who would want to accompany a country bumpkin here to talk about common knowledge that everyone knew? They were all people with status in the city. It's quite helpful. After absorbing soul fluid, one's soul will become stronger, and the speed of cultivation will be faster, someone explained. Ning Shu asked again, "Are there any side effects, such as qi deviation?" "This will only happen if you absorb impure soul fluid. Don't worry, the soul fluid in the banquet is pure." "Ning Shu, are you sure?" It seemed that these people treated the soul fluid as a powerful method, just like absorbing spirit stones. To them, this was pure soul fluid, but Ning Shu felt that it wasn't pure at all. That meant that not only soul fluid, those with physical bodies also used soul fluid. No wonder everyone had to be enclosed in the city. Who was the one who had invented this method? What a genius! At that time, it might have been a way to deal with these wandering souls, but times had changed, and now the heavenly Tao was going to overthrow this model. When this model was overturned, people would become much more free. Of course, freedom came with a price, and that was to face the dangerous world alone. But souls were free, and they could enter the world of reincarnation and start a new life. Ning Shu picked up the wine cup and shook the soul fluid in the cup. Although it was clearer, it was still not pure soul fluid. Yi Lin saw that Ning Shu did not drink, and also did not drink with a cold face, and felt a little disgusted. These things poured into the wine cup were human souls. It was to crush human souls and turn them into cups of soul fluid that could make people stronger. Humans were like cows, squeezing out fresh milk, and these people were eating blood-stained buns. Ning Shu put down the wine cup. "I won't drink this kind of thing directly. If you really want to give me soul fluid, then give me all of it. I also said my conditions. If you want me to let go of this city, it's not impossible. Give me all of the soul fluid, and destroy the device that can purify soul fluid." Like this city, if one was overthrown, maybe another one would appear. Everyone, ha ha ha, you really think you're a spring onion. Don't think that you're invincible after destroying 2 cities. That's because you didn't hit an iron plate. If you hit an iron plate, you'll definitely break your leg. The atmosphere froze for a moment. The music stopped, and the dancers retreated. One of the souls played with the wine cup in his hand. You're going too far with what you said. What are you doing this for? Of course, it's to build a harmonious society. Ning Shu said without a care. You're crazy. If you're sick, take medicine. How did this kind of person cultivate? Was the heavens blind? Crazy people were not scary, but crazy people with fighting strength were scary. Yi Lin almost choked on his saliva. He did not understand what she was thinking. What was she doing? He could not make sense of what she was doing. What if we don't agree? What do you plan to do? Are you sure you can destroy the city? I advise you, this is not a small city. One of them warned with a cold face. Moreover, the city's trump card was something she could not imagine. She would definitely be finished. The atmosphere became more and more tense. A battle was about to break out. Ning Shu dropped the wine cup on the ground. With a clang, the wine cup shattered. Ning Shu said apologetically, "Sorry, my hand slipped." Don't go too far. Do you think you can leave after coming here? Looks like you have a lot of good things on you. Ning Shu sighed. Why did everyone think she had good things on her? They were all thinking about the good things she had. She now had 2 law imprints, which were very precious. She also had a ruby ring. The problem was, could they get it? Yi Lin was a little nervous. Seeing his cheap master so calm, he also calmed down. However, he was really worried that his cheap master would leave him here. Yi Lin was measuring his own fighting strength. He did not know how much fighting strength that bull had. Sure enough, it's a hongmen banquet. There's no other way. It looks like I have to fight. Ning Shu put away the wine jug on the table. It was full of soul fluid. He could not waste it. Yi Lin also silently put away the wine jug. He did not understand this person. He clearly liked soul fluid very much, but she did not allow others to produce it. Why? He did not understand her goal. Could it be that she wanted to overthrow the rule of these cities and establish an even larger place to produce soul fluid? If that was really the case, then would he have to part ways with his master? He could not accept that one day he would become his master's helper and help her collect souls. His parents had died because of this, becoming a cup of soul fluid /BK. Chapter 2543. Yi Lin's mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts, and the current situation had become very restless. The horses were about to fight. One side wanted to give something to Ning Shu like he was a beggar, while Ning Shu wanted to completely destroy the existence of the city. This contradiction could not be reconciled, and could only be solved by fighting. Yi Lin's heart was somewhat eager to give it a try. Although he was not satisfied with the newly formed soul fluid, he wanted to test his combat strength. Fighting with so many experts, his blood was boiling. Ning Shu sighed. It seemed that he was going to fight, and he did not want to waste the power of the imprint. What do you want? Ning Shu, the expert in the hall, asked. Ning Shu shook his head and said, "My request is like this. If you don't agree, then we can only fight. If you agree, you might be able to keep your life. If you fight, people will die. Souls are not something you can imprison," Ning Shu said. So, you want to occupy all the souls, all the people. Ning Shu stretched out his finger and waved it. No, it should be said that all the souls will come to me, and you will imprison the souls so that they can't go where they should go. Yi Lin looked at his master with some astonishment. So, his master had the same goal as these people, for souls. Yi Lin clenched his fist tightly, and the blue veins on the back of his hand bulged. What should he do? He clearly felt that this situation was wrong. People should not be like this, like cattle and sheep, and then like animals waiting to be slaughtered. But his master was also like this. Should he do the same? The kindness of teaching collided with his own heart. The others sneered. They obviously had the same idea, but they came to rob so openly. Couldn't they be a little more shameless? If they did not destroy this kind of person today, would there be people coming to rob them in the future? The hall was surrounded by a barrier, which should have been set up before. I'll give you something, it should be easy to accept. Do you really think that you are invincible after destroying 2 small cities? Ning Shu tapped the table with his finger and said to Yi Lin, fight with these people and see how strong you are. Yi Lin's expression was hesitant and somewhat resistant. He wanted to help his master deal with these people, but what was the difference between his master and these people? Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and looked at Yi Lin. Why was he standing still? Don't you want to take revenge? Yi Lin hesitated for a moment. He would settle this matter first, and then talk about his master. Yi Lin released the bull, which was condensed from spirit qi, and charged towards the crowd with its horns on its head. That aggressive look was indeed quite frightening. Ning Shu smiled at Yi Lin and said, "Cowherd boy." Yi Lin was speechless. Why didn't he have a mighty and domineering aura? One look and he would be able to act cool. It was so hopeless. The bull rampaged in the hall, and its nostrils seemed to be able to spurt fire. Ning Shu felt like he was watching a bullfight. If someone was careless, his waist or body would be hit by the bull, and his face would turn pale. But weapons couldn't do anything to this bull. Even if it was broken, it could be condensed again as long as there was enough spiritual energy. This kind of indestructible creature, which didn't know pain or fatigue, was the most torturous. The hall was in chaos. Someone covered the bull with a magic weapon to prevent it from running around. Yi Lin condensed another bull. Ning Shu said to Yi Lin, if you want, you can condense a large herd of bulls and flatten a place. Don't think that only vines are powerful. Yi Lin's expression changed, and he didn't resist the Qi bulls so much. Yi Lin's strength wasn't enough. It was just a small fight. In the end, Ning Shu had to do it. Moreover, Yi Lin's body didn't have much spiritual energy. Ning Shu stretched out his vines and wanted to entangle these people together. Yi Lin looked at these vines. They seemed to have their own consciousness. It was like they were growing. They looked messy, but they weren't messy at all. If he had to control so many vines, his head would probably explode. When everyone saw this woman release the vines, they were very careful. They heard that these vines destroyed a city. How did this kind of vine grow? He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the chaotic scene. With these vines, these people couldn't get close at all. Ning Shu felt that laws were really good things. He had to comprehend more laws in the future. Who knew when he wouldn't be able to comprehend them? There was a problem with his sea of laws. Who knew when it would be completely exhausted? However, these people's strength couldn't be underestimated. They directly cut the vines into pieces. Their every move had a huge pressure. Adding that there was a barrier here, it seemed to be able to weaken their strength. Some people sneered. Let's see how many vines you have. These vines were really good things. Yi Lin saw that the vines were at a disadvantage and released his bull. Although it wasn't of much use, it could at least delay 1 or 2 people. Yi Lin was anxious to death. He turned his head and saw that his master was actually picking up the wine jug on the ground. He shook it twice. If there was soul fluid, he would keep it. If there wasn't, he would throw it away. He was really picking up scraps. He was too greedy. They were fighting now, who cared about soul fluid? He was really convinced. Master, we are going to be captured alive. Yi Lin said with a bit of disappointment. Don't worry, your master, have a way. We are not at the end of the line yet. Don't be afraid, I will protect you. These people are really stingy. They actually drank all the soul fluid. Yi Lin, please, can I beg you? Ning Shu took out the ruby ring and shot out a ray of time light. The barrier immediately weakened a lot. He shot out another ray, and the barrier cracked and disappeared. What's going on? Everyone was a bit stunned. The barrier was actually broken just like that. Some sharp-eyed people saw the ring on Ning Shu's hand. What kind of spirit tool was that? It actually broke the barrier in 2 or 3 moves. There were many good things in the formation eye of the barrier. Ordinary people couldn't get out at all. In the face of such a treasure, no one wouldn't be greedy. If they had such a treasure, they could go anywhere. The barrier was nothing. It was like a fish in water. If they wanted to steal something or do something bad, this spirit tool would be a great weapon. They really wanted it. Yi Lin glanced at the ruby ring on Ning Shu's finger. The ruby was dazzling and red, without any impurities. It was as red as blood. His master was really mysterious. He also had many treasures on him. What was his background? What did he do? What was his purpose? If he asked, would his master tell him? Yi Lin was very depressed. If his master was like these people and also wanted to enslave souls, what should he do? Yi Lin was so conflicted that he wanted to cry, /BK. Chapter 2544. As Ning Shu took out the ruby ring, the Azura arena paused. Almost everyone's eyes were focused on Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu looked at her hand and said, "Don't drool over my beautiful hand." Yi Lin could not help but want to roll her eyes. Who here was looking at her pig trotters? They were all looking at the ring. She guessed that all of them wanted to snatch the ring. Don't take everything out. This way of showing off your wealth was the most hated. Ning Shu unhurriedly took off the ring and put it away. Everyone's expression became disappointed and frustrated. Their expressions were as if they had lost their lover. Ning Shu said, "If you don't agree, then I can only destroy this city. Since you don't want to take out the soul fluid, I will find it myself." Impudent, hee. Because of the stimulation of the ring, these people became very active. They all wanted to get rid of Ning Shu and snatch the ring on her. This kind of thing that could break barriers was good stuff. As long as there was a barrier, it could be passed unimpeded. More vines stretched out from Ning Shu's body, preventing these people from approaching. The vines wrapped around these people, and white flowers bloomed on the vines. It emitted a fragrant scent. Ning Shu was a little surprised. The vines actually grew flowers. Well, flowers would definitely look better than bare vines. There were some green leaves and flowers. It was very good. The people who smelled the fragrance of the flowers showed an intoxicated expression. They seemed to feel the aura of life. There was a burst of life force surging in their bodies. But not long after, this life force began to slowly disappear from their bodies. Everyone woke up as if from a dream and found that their strength had decreased a lot. Ning Shu felt a burst of life force rushing into her body. It accumulated on the law of wood imprint in her mouth. The drop of crystal clear water seemed to have become bigger. Although she did not know what was going on, it was good to be able to increase her strength. Vines stretched out from the hall and rushed in all directions of the city. The demons are here. The demoness who destroyed the city is here. The commoners in the city lost their heads out of fear. They covered their heads and scurried away like rats, spreading the news to each other. It was a complete mess as they all rushed out of the city. These vines wrapped around one house after another. The vines pierced deeply into the towering city walls, causing cracks to appear on the city walls. Everyone watched as the vines quickly covered the entire city. At a glance, everything was green and lush. They were all vines. Ning Shu spread his hands and said, "If you don't agree, then we can only fight, and you want to rob my things. Hee, what are you feeling wronged for? Didn't you come here to snatch the soul fluid? Not only did you snatch the soul fluid, you even went so far as to destroy the city." Everyone's expression was extremely ugly as they looked at Ning Shu and Yi Lin, who were floating in the air. Yi Lin probably hadn't learned how to fly yet, as he stood in the air in a panic. "Why don't you release the cows and sit on their backs? It would be more appropriate to sit on their backs. It wouldn't be so embarrassing." Yi Lin was speechless. "I refuse. If I sit on their backs, I will really become a cowherd." Yi Lin looked at the vines that covered the entire city and sighed in his heart. Previously, he felt that it was very terrifying just by hearing about it. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, it was even more spectacular. With just a thought, these vines could destroy the entire city. Ning Shu asked, "Are you going to give me the soul fluid?" "No, don't go overboard. When the time comes, everyone in the world will attack you. You won't be able to fight against so many people with your 2 fists, a person warned Ning Shu with a dark face. They didn't expect this guy to release the vines just like that. This city would definitely be destroyed. There was no turning back once the arrow was shot. If this person was a prideful person, what if he wanted to destroy the city? Ning Shu said, "I have more than one pair of hands. I have many hands. And if I want to hide, none of you will be able to find me." Ning Shu wasn't afraid at all. He opened a black hole and ran away. He would disappear from this world. Where would they go to find him? Even if they turned this world upside down, they wouldn't be able to find him. Everyone was speechless. They were most afraid of this kind of rat-like thing. She was just a troublemaker. She was alone in this world and was not afraid of anything. She threw a stone at a rat and even hit an exquisite porcelain. They had a lot to worry about. And the other party didn't care about anything. "Will you leave just because I gave you the soul fluid? Won't you come back in the future?" Ning Shu waved his hand. "Other than giving me the soul fluid, you also destroyed the equipment to purify the soul fluid, and the spirit tool in General Wei's hand to collect souls. There was no room for negotiation. This guy wanted to cut off everyone's livelihood. Without these things, where would the soul fluid come from? He was deliberately looking for trouble. He didn't want to settle this peacefully at all. Without these things, how would they collect souls and produce soul fluid? He was obviously greedy for the soul fluid, but he wanted to destroy all these equipment. Could it be that he wanted to monopolize everyone and make it impossible for others to produce soul fluid? Then there's no room for negotiation. You've gone too far. If you leave now, we'll compensate you. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Ning Shu said, "Then let me see the consequences." Ning Shu snapped his fingers. The vines covering the city wriggled, destroying the houses and city walls. Rumble, rumble, the ground shook. The walls fell to the ground, raising a thick layer of dust. Damn it, damn it. Some people were so angry that their eyes were red. How could he bully people like this? A warrior would rather be killed than humiliated. The vines drilled into the thick city walls, destroying the towering city walls. The power of laws here wasn't suppressed at all. Ning Shu suspected that he had opened a back door for himself. Logically speaking, every world would have a suppression on power. It wouldn't allow power to exceed the limits of the world. But no matter the reason, it was fine as long as it was beneficial to her. With a rumble, one of the city walls fell down. Fuck, what the hell is this? Lowly slave dared to come here and cause trouble. A bad-tempered cultivator cursed and rushed over. Ning Shu's face was as calm as water. He stared at the cultivator who rushed over. With a tap of his finger, the cultivator's blood began to boil. The cultivator immediately stopped and used his cultivation to suppress the abnormality in his body. Because the cultivator's blood was boiling, his body was flushed red like a cooked shrimp. He felt like his entire body was about to smoke. The cultivator circulated the spirit energy in his body to expel the heat. Seeing this, the others hurriedly asked, "Are you all right? What did you do to him?" Ning Shu shrugged and said, "I didn't do anything. He was the one who rushed over." The cultivator's situation wasn't good. His skin was getting redder and redder. Chapter 25:45. Not only was his skin flushed red, but it also began to swell. It was steaming hot, just like the braised meat that had just come out of the pot. But then, the blood in his body began to freeze again. His face turned from red to pale white, and his whole body was emitting cold air. The cultivator's body couldn't take the cold and hot. Although he didn't directly explode, his whole body didn't feel good. Everyone looked at Ning Shu in horror, not knowing what she had done. The vines were still destroying the city, and the houses collapsed one by one. The towering city walls were full of cracks, and it was as if the city would collapse with just a finger. Yi Lin felt really fucking good. The feeling of collapsing one by one was really good. Destruction was much easier than construction. Because of the previous example, these people didn't dare to rush up rashly. They stood in a stalemate. The leader gritted his teeth and looked a little hesitant, but he still crushed the jade in his heart. Ning Shu saw it, but she didn't stop it. The leader should be informing someone. But Ning Shu increased the speed of destroying the city, and the ground was rumbling. The people outside the city watched as their homes turned into ruins, and dust flew everywhere. What was this woman doing? Wherever she went, she destroyed. Was there no one who could deal with her? The heavens were blind. Some women hugged their children and cried. Their homes were gone, so where could they go? Some people trembled. Some of them had already experienced this and thought that it would be fine after changing to another city. They didn't expect to experience it again. She destroyed one city after another. There were also some older people who directly knelt on the ground and begged the heavens to punish such a vicious person. It would be best if she could be struck to death. One person knelt down, followed by many others who knelt down and started praying. See, the one who wins the hearts of the people controls the world. Demons like you should be punished. The leader saw that all the people in the city knelt down and begged the heavens. Ning Shu said nonchalantly, "I destroyed 2 cities before. Everyone did the same, but I'm still alive and well. I don't see the heavens punishing me. As for what these people think of me, it's none of my business. Whether they like me or hate me or fear me, I don't care," Ning Shu said directly. If he had to make everyone understand him, wouldn't he be exhausted to death? If he had the time, he might as well use it to search for soul fluid and destroy 2 more cities. The opinions of these people did not affect her at all. It was like a gust of wind blowing past her ears. She did not need to care about them. Yi Lin was speechless. This kind of pain in the ass that didn't even care if he was hated by millions of people, she had to kneel down in admiration. 666. Even though there were so many people praying, the sky was still blue and white. There was no divine lightning, and the city was completely destroyed. Everything was in ruins. The people were speechless. The heavens were blind. Why hasn't the person you notified arrived yet? Ning Shu asked. If he hasn't arrived, then I'll take the soul fluid. Ning Shu took out the ruby ring, put it on his finger, and aimed it at the barrier above the palace. Under the light of the time ray, the palace's barrier had already shattered. Ning Shu was about to enter the palace to find the pool of soul fluid. Stop, don't be too arrogant. Seeing Ning Shu swagger, he was so angry that his eyes were about to turn red. He was a high and mighty person in the city. Now that he was being humiliated like this, he could not stand it. Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at them. My city has already been destroyed. What does it matter if I take the soul fluid? Fellow Daoist, you're going a little overboard. A man's lazy voice came from the horizon, and then a black dot appeared. The black dot grew bigger and bigger, and a man in white clothes was standing on the back of a vermilion bird. He looked at Ning Shu with a smile on his face. City Lord, you've returned. When everyone saw this man, their eyes immediately burst with strong confidence. Obviously, they had absolute confidence in this man. Ning Shu looked at him and greeted him with great grace. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Well said. Why did you destroy my city like this? The man in white was not angry at all. Instead, he asked Ning Shu curiously. Ning Shu sighed and said helplessly, because I need souls. I want souls to go where they should go. So, these cities have souls and even refined them. How can I tolerate this? Oh, so you're saying that we're in the wrong? The man was even more curious. Fellow Daoist, is there a problem with your logic? Everyone, are you guys really that naive? Ning Shu shook his head and said, there's no problem with logic. Everyone is fighting for souls. I'm also here to fight for souls. Is there a problem with logic? Cities were all thinking about annexing each other and taking the other's population into their own to increase their population. It was as if there was a problem with logic between countries. The man nodded seriously. You're right. City Lord. Was it really okay to say that? But if you invade my territory and hurt my people, you have to pay the price. If we're not strong enough today, you can destroy us. But what if you can't leave today? The man was very gentlemanly from beginning to end. He was not angry. Ning Shu said with a smile, don't worry. I'll definitely escape. You can rest assured about this. Well, you might be able to escape, but the little friend beside you might not be able to. The man was talking about Yi Lin. Yi Lin, who was being watched, tried his best not to tremble. He was the weakest person here. If not for his master, anyone here could kill him instantly. You don't have to worry about that. Taking him away is a matter of minutes. And if he really can't escape, you can rest assured that I'll definitely kill him. I won't let you torture him, Ning Shu said jokingly. Yi Lin, he was speechless. He couldn't tell which of her words were true and which were false. Master, Yi Lin called out softly. Ning Shu turned around and comforted him. Don't be afraid. I won't leave you here. Even if I can't take your body, I can take your soul. Yi Lin, thank you very much. Do you know who you're talking to? The city lord was the first to invent the soul fluid. That's why these wandering souls have a home. These people were full of admiration for this man in white. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. The first to invent the soul fluid. The main culprit. In a way, he was also an amazing person. You set up the array formation. It's nothing. I was just blindly thinking about it. Oh, blindly thinking about it led to something that could change the structure of the world on the second level? Chapter 2546. Ning Shu sized him up carefully. He couldn't tell if he was a soul or a cultivator. Do you use soul fluid? The man shook his head. I don't use it. It's against the harmony of the world. Ning Shu, he was ashamed of his own shamelessness. After doing such a thing, did he think that he wouldn't harm the harmony of the world just because he didn't use soul fluid? Did he think that his conscience would be at ease just because he didn't use soul fluid? Ning Shu was almost amused by this idiot's self-deceiving act. When it came to shamelessness, there was always a taller mountain. City Lord, this woman wants to steal our soul fluid, destroy our city, and kill our people. If we don't exterminate her, there will be no end of trouble in the future. Everyone said one after another, almost bursting into tears. You're a soul. Even if you need soul fluid, you shouldn't destroy the city. If you destroy the city, the people outside the city will be pitiful. They won't even have a place to live. The man shook his head in disapproval. Ning Shu felt that if he continued to chat with this man, he would probably be able to get along well. It wasn't like he was shooting his mouth off. He was just chatting like Tang Sanzang, rambling on and on. I'm willing. These people will only be enslaved if they stay in the city, Ning Shu said. The man shook his head. You're wrong. These people have no strength. No matter where they go, they will be kept in captivity. Why are you so bad? It's not good to let these people live a peaceful and happy life. As for their souls after death, it's actually not important. Ning Shu, don't try to convince me. I'm bad. Ning Shu pointed at his own nose. Why aren't you bad? Do you know the price of freedom when you give these people freedom? The outside world is so dangerous. You let them face it alone. Aren't you bad? The man stood on the back of the vermilion bird. He looked as calm as an immortal, but he kept nagging. The immortal aura was completely gone. Ning Shu, do you think you're right? Whether I'm right or not is one thing. But have you thought about whether these people really want the freedom you give them? The man nagged. I don't care about their opinions at all. You're wrong again. You destroyed their homes without permission and deprived them of their hope of living a peaceful life. You don't even care about their opinions. You're a bad person. Ning Shu was speechless. What the fuck, was she bad? Ning Shu sneered, so, you care a lot about what these people think. Of course I don't mind, but these people live in the city, the man said. Ning Shu clutched his chest, feeling agitated. He felt like he was going to vomit blood. It was simply a waste of time to talk nonsense with him. I still have to do a mission. Everyone was speechless. Seeing the city lord chatting so enthusiastically with this woman, they wondered if the city lord was too lonely. Why was he chatting with someone like this? Was he going to discuss the Tao? Ning Shu went straight to the point. So, what do you mean? Just say it. If you leave now, I won't bother with you, the man said. What if I don't? Ning Shu asked. Then I'll make you leave willingly. The man sighed. I hate fighting the most. As the man spoke, bolts of lightning exploded from his body. These bolts of lightning were very thick, and they struck the vines and split them in half. The entire city was shrouded in dark clouds. Dense lightning bolts struck down from the clouds, striking the vines. The heavens have opened their eyes and sent down heavenly punishment. The citizens outside the city cheered. As long as the demons were beaten back, they could rebuild their homes and start a new life. The vines covering the city were split into pieces by the lightning and lost their ability to fight. Although the wood element had a restorative effect, there were many things that countered it. Anything with the element of destruction, such as destruction laws, fire, and lightning, was very effective against it. Ning Shu put away the vines. The city was already destroyed anyway, so there was no need for him to do anything. Ning Shu held the burning wood law imprint and looked up at the dark clouds in the sky. He then looked at the man standing on the vermilion bird's back. The ability to summon heavenly lightning and lightning was a force of nature, and this bastard could actually control it. Furthermore, lightning was very effective against spiritual bodies. This man was not a spiritual body. He had a physical body. The appearance of this man gave the citizens of the city a lot of courage. He looked at Ning Shu and Yi Lin with killing intent and smugness in his eyes. On the other hand, the man put away the lightning. Without the dark clouds covering the sky lit up. Yi Lin's face darkened. He might not be able to leave today. Sigh, following such a bad master was really frustrating. Yi Lin said to Ning Shu, Master, you go first. Ning Shu asked calmly, what about you? I have a way to escape. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. What can you do? Tell me. Yi Lin, he didn't know if he should say something like that. In any case, he had already gotten his revenge, so he was satisfied. He said to Ning Shu, Master, is it true that you can take my soul away? Ning Shu, it's pretty much true. Please have a reliable master. The man stood on the vermilion bird's back. His robes fluttered as he said to Ning Shu, are you going to leave or not? Ning Shu suddenly asked, how do you possess the power of lightning? Jealousy makes me ugly. If she wanted to comprehend the laws of lightning, the power of those laws would be enough to destroy her soul. I was lucky enough to refine a tribulation cloud during my tribulation transcendence, the man said casually. However, all the cultivators present were shocked. That cultivator had to sacrifice half of his life during his tribulation transcendence. He had to use all kinds of spirit tools to resist the tribulation lightning, but this bastard had actually refined a tribulation cloud. So jealous. Ya Lin's face turned from waxy yellow to ghastly pale. However, Ning Shu felt that ghastly pale looked better than waxy yellow. Ning Shu said, don't tell me you only know how to release lightning. The man nodded and said, I think so. My most powerful power is lightning. However, tribulation clouds are divided into several types. There are black, purple, and 9 heavens divine thunder. Ning Shu, everyone present trembled. Purple tribulation lightning was very rare. When 9 heavens divine thunder struck down, there would be nothing left of it. Their souls would be destroyed. Yi Lin, it seemed that he had really kicked an iron plate this time. Yi Lin could only sigh in his heart. He touched the earthworm-like bug hiding in his clothes. His life hadn't even started yet, but he had followed an unreliable master and ended up losing his life. It would have been better for him to hide in the dark from the beginning and come out to ride the waves when he was strong enough. Ning Shu rubbed his chin and looked back and forth between the man in white and Yi Lin. He said to Yi Lin, you go. Yi Lin, if you can't beat him, what's the point of letting me go? Yi Lin really despaired of this cheap master. Chapter 2547. Ning Shu always felt that this white-robed man had the intention of punishing on behalf of the heavens. Simply put, he was the son of the heavens, the male lead. No one could refine the tribulation cloud, but this guy actually did it. A new generation of people saved people. When these two people were together, the white-robed man represented the past of an era. At that time, he had invented this method. Perhaps it was the best way to collect souls, unlike the first level where the cycle repeated and the souls became more and more poisonous. Yi Lin represented the beginning of a new era. Now, this model was about to be overturned. He just did not know if the tribulation cloud would strike Yi Lin. The white-robed man seemed to be a little impatient with Ning Shu's stubbornness. Everyone has a hard time cultivating, especially you who are still a soul body. It is already very lucky that you did not turn into soul fluid. What are you still unhappy about? This is my disciple. You can compete with him. One was the eldest son, the other was the youngest. What would the result be if these two people fought? The white-robed man looked at the blushing Yi Lin and frowned. He is too weak. You might still have the strength to fight. Yi Lin's face turned even redder. He was angry, but he could not refute this man. Ning Shu let out a long sigh and said helplessly, then give me all the soul fluid and destroy the array formation. You are wrong again. One of the array was destroyed. As long as I am here, this array can be created many more. The man shook his head. Ning Shu smiled slightly. Be careful of being struck by lightning. The world is changing at any time. If you insist on setting up this array, you have to be careful. Your tribulation cloud can strike you at any time. Ning Shu somewhat understood the meaning of Yi Lin's birth. Not only did he want to overturn this model, he also wanted to destroy this man. Because of this man's ability, he could turn this world into a captive system at any time. In the past, he was a meritorious service. Now, he had become a virus-like existence. He was an existence that needed to be formatted. Sometimes, the heavens were cold, heartless, and unreasonable. Previously, you were a favored existence. Perhaps it would not be long before you were ruthless. Unless this man wanted to enter the world above, it didn't matter if he wasn't in this world. After figuring this out, Ning Shu grabbed Yi Lin's collar and pulled him behind him. He smiled and said to the man in white, "Okay, I'll give you face today. I'm leaving." The man in white was stunned for a moment, but he still nodded. "Since you've left, I hope you won't disturb my city." Ning Shu chuckled. "I'm also warning you. It's best if you don't do soul confinement again. Be careful that your tribulation clouds don't go out of control." The white-robed man frowned. He could feel that the tribulation clouds were getting out of his control, but he couldn't give up on this kind of power. Ning Shu grabbed Yi Lin and flew far away, disappearing from the horizon. "City Lord, how can we let them go? You don't know how arrogant they are." "That's right. The city has already been destroyed to such an extent. Letting them go just like that would be letting them off too easily." The man said indifferently, "Then what do you want?" "Of course we'll kill them as a warning to others." The man in white ignored these people's endless complaints and stood on the back of the vermilion bird. The vermilion bird flapped its wings and flew away, leaving the group of people dumbfounded. Wasn't the city lord going to stay and preside over the situation? Was he going to leave just like that? Yi Lin was full of wind and finally stopped. He landed on the ground and coughed twice, coughing out the air in his lungs. "That's a gorgeous split line. Please note that after reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes." Recommended reading, "That's a gorgeous split line." Yi Lin sat on the ground dispiritedly. He looked at Ning Shu and sighed. "Master, what's wrong with you?" One moment, he pushed him out to fight with the person holding the heavenly thunder. The next moment, he pulled him and ran away. This was crazy. Ning Shu said, "Oh, I've figured out some things in my heart. I need time to verify them." Ning Shu felt that even if this model was overturned now, it was impossible to completely become a world of free souls in a short period of time. There must be people secretly refining souls. Yi Lin's role was to defend the model of free souls and fight against these people who refined souls. Yi Lin had not grown up yet. Although he had some strength now, he was not very strong. If he died midway, then the heavenly Tao would have to choose a new suitable candidate. This would take a lot of time. Therefore, Ning Shu still felt that it was better not to bring Yi Lin to dangerous places. Ning Shu felt that he had also been schemed against by the heavenly Tao. She had destroyed these cities violently, and Yi Lin had consolidated the situation. Of course, it might not be a scheme. Because there was the soul fluid she wanted in the cities. For the soul fluid, she had also destroyed this model of confining souls. Yi Lin's hair stood on end when his cheap master sized him up with a penetrating gaze. That kind of gaze that was full of calculation was really uncomfortable. Yi Lin swallowed and asked, "Master, if you have something to say, just say it. Even if you want disciple to do something, as long as it doesn't go against disciple's wishes, disciple is willing to help you achieve it. If you want to help me complete it, wait a little longer." Ning Shu waved his hand and sat down to rest for a while before attacking the other cities. Yi Lin leaned closer to Ning Shu and asked, "Master, can I ask you something?" "Yes, go ahead. What are you doing all this for?" "To build the harmonious association." "Master, there are only the two of us here. Can you tell me what your goal is?" Ning Shu propped up his chin and blinked. A world of free souls. Yi Lin, speak human language. What do you mean? Ning Shu said, live, grow old, get sick, and die freely. Then the souls will go where they should go and reincarnate again and again. Yi Lin was confused. I don't quite understand. Does Master want to gather souls? If I want to gather souls, will you help me? Ning Shu turned to ask Yi Lin. Yi Lin moved to the side. Master, I'm weak. I'm afraid I can't help Master. There's a world full of souls. If these souls want to start a new life, they need to jump into a place called the reincarnation pool. Then they will start a new reincarnation cycle. From a fetus to a baby, then to a teenager, middle age, old age, and finally death. Yi Lin was a little puzzled. Then will they still remember the past? No, they will be a completely new person. But with souls trapped like this, they can't go to that world and have no chance to start anew. So do you understand now? Ning Shu looked at Yi Lin. Yi Lin. But Master, you're also collecting soul fluid. Are you stupid? Those souls that have turned into soul fluid have no chance of reincarnation. Why don't you collect them? To Ning Shu, souls that had turned into soul fluid were no different from soul stones. Then what is your identity, Master? Yi Lin looked at Ning Shu seriously and asked. Chapter 25-48. My identity? You can call me Comrade Lei Feng, Ning Shu said. I'm Comrade Lei Feng, who serves the people. Yi Lin was speechless. He didn't want to tell him. Yi Lin kept guessing in his heart. He asked, Master, you're not from this world, right? Ning Shu nodded, tacitly agreeing. Are you from hell? Ning Shu glanced at Yi Lin. It's there. Yi Lin finally breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He thought that his master had destroyed these cities to build a bigger one and keep everyone in captivity. Since there was no conflict, it was fine. Rest well. Let's go to the next place. Where are we going? Yi Lin asked. To find soul fluid, of course. Where else would we go? Yi Lin suddenly felt a headache. Didn't we destroy one already? Master, I think we should pause for a while. Why should we pause? If these people hide the soul fluid and use it all, I won't be able to get anything. I'll feel bad. Ning Shu said as he picked up Yi Lin and headed to the next city. Yi Lin mumbled, didn't we run into someone before? What if we run into someone so powerful again? Impossible. Besides, it's not like I can't beat him. Yi Lin, but you ran away with your tail between your legs. Of course, Yi Lin didn't dare to say this out loud. He resigned himself to his fate and followed her. With his strength, he would only be a burden. When they reached the next city, Ning Shu didn't say anything and covered the entire city with vines. In order to prevent the people in the city from hiding the soul fluid, the vines went very deep. In any case, wherever Ning Shu went, there were screams and screams. It was like hell on earth. Yi Lin facepalmed. He didn't feel so good. Everyone was cursing his master, but this guy seemed to be deaf and couldn't hear a thing. The city's people rushed over, but before they could say anything, Ning Shu had already killed the city lord and said that if anyone dared to raise souls in captivity, she would immediately kill them. After killing the man, Ning Shu went to the palace to look for soul fluid. As expected, there wasn't much left. This made Ning Shu very unhappy. With a sullen face, he collected the soul fluid in the pool. Master, why don't you go to a shop and look for some soul fluid? Some shops also have soul fluid. Ning Shu said, we knew that these people would hide the soul fluid. Ning Shu walked around the city. Every time he passed a place, he would scan it with his spiritual force to see if there was any soul fluid. Some shops only had a little bit of soul fluid, but it wasn't a lot. He always felt that these shops had transferred the soul fluid in advance. Ning Shu snapped his fingers, and the vines spread out and destroyed the entire city. The commoners outside the city cried in despair. Without a home, where should they go to survive? As for the survival of these people, Ning Shu wasn't worried at all because humans were a race with strong adaptability. Now that they had no place to live, they could quickly build a new place to live. Moreover, they were free. They didn't need to be trapped in such a huge city. Ning Shu didn't stop and rushed to the next city. This was the last city and the only city left. However, the people in this city seemed to have run away. It was about to become an empty city. There was probably even less soul fluid. He destroyed the city while he was at it. The powerful people in this city had all run away. There was no soul fluid in the pool. Except for some shops in the city that had a small amount of soul fluid, Ning Shu could be said to have no harvest. He took the soul fluid and ran away. Sure enough, he came back from a mission with so little harvest. If he came back from another mission, there would be nothing left. Ning Shu's face darkened. She had collected almost all the soul fluid in this world. She didn't know about some people's private stashes of soul fluid. Therefore, this world was almost finished again. However, Ning Shu felt that she hadn't collected much soul fluid. Therefore, Ning Shu decided to make a comeback. There was still one city that she hadn't robbed yet. If the man in white hadn't appeared, she would have already plundered that city clean. Yi Lin, Master, why did we come back? Yi Lin saw that they had returned to the city from before. I still have soul fluid to take. Without it, I feel uncomfortable all over. Ning Shu went straight to the palace. The barrier of the palace had already been broken. Before anyone could react, they watched her take away all the soul fluid in the pool. Damn, they had never seen such a shameless person. She had already left, but she still came back. However, the city lord had already left. No one here was her match. She took the soul fluid and destroyed the array to purify the soul. Everything was done. Only then did Ning Shu feel a little better. Then, these people watched as the two of them left. Yi Lin didn't care about the soul fluid. However, seeing his master rushing back and forth for the soul fluid, he didn't look like an expert at all. Do you like soul fluid that much? Yi Lin asked. Of course. I suspect that some people in some cities ran away in advance. They probably moved to another place and continued to refine the cities. As for the reason, it's to avoid me. Ning Shu's face was cold. Although all the cities were destroyed, this captive mode wouldn't disappear for a while. It was even possible to refine soul fluid in a village or a town. Yi Lin said, as long as there are benefits, as long as it can make cultivators stronger, this mode can't be stopped. It will take a long time for it to disappear completely. If you like, I can help you collect soul fluid. Conveniently, this kind of thing would disappear. Ning Shu said without hesitation, okay, but don't absorb this kind of soul fluid. You can't absorb it because it's not pure. Then will you absorb it? You won't just collect it and put it there to look good. In short, this person had a lot of secrets. He was very mysterious. Even if he revealed a little of his origin, it was still vague. Ning Shu warned Yi Lin, don't refine soul fluid. I won't. That's not necessarily true. I definitely won't. I guarantee it with my character. If he did this kind of thing, how could his dead parents bear it? For his disciple, he couldn't discourage him. He should encourage him. I still believe in your character. You're very good. Yi Lin, you obviously don't believe in me. Then I'm leaving. He had wasted a lot of time here. I'll leave the earthworm to you. This kind of thing is very good at dealing with souls. Some powerful souls might not necessarily go to the world of samsara. And in a short time, the two worlds hadn't been well adjusted. He wanted to go to the third level. It was good. The third level was Zhe Yang's world. The earthworm arched out of Yi Lin's collar and asked, "Am I useless to you? Are you afraid that I'll eat your soul stone, so you abandon me, /BK?" Chapter 2550. Si Tian replied, "No, I don't have anything you said." Ning Shu asked, "What kind of business are you doing? Why don't you have anything?" Si Tian was speechless. The things he wanted were rare, yet he blamed others for not having them. If these things were so common, they wouldn't be precious. It seemed that Si Tian really didn't have anything. Who should he buy it from? The exchange store wouldn't have such an awesome thing. If it did, the price would definitely be shocking. Si Tian asked Ning Shu if he had any soul power or soul origin to sell. He would definitely sell it at a high price. Ning Shu was also very conflicted. If he sold it, there would be less of it. It wouldn't be easy to find it again. Therefore, Ning Shu still felt that she would rather eat dirt than sell soul power in the future. At least, she wouldn't sell it if she didn't need money now. Ning Shu rejected Si Tian's suggestion. Si Tian reluctantly said that if she wanted to sell it, she could look for him. She felt that Si Tian knew that she had something in her hands. Not getting what she wanted, Ning Shu turned off the chat system and went offline. She would rather wait for something good than casually create a world carrier to build a world. The chat system dinged. Ning Shu opened the system and saw that it was a system message inviting her into the group. Ning Shu refused to join the group. With the Law Incarnation group, Ning Shu felt that she might be an unsociable person, so she didn't want to join. Ning Shu rejected it directly. She liked to be a lone ranger. Not long after he clicked reject, another ding-dong sounded. It was another system message inviting her into the group. There was also a sentence. "This is the last time. If you don't want to join, then leave." Ning Shu was speechless. "You have such a bad temper even if you want to add me." Ning Shu rejected it in her heart, but her body honestly clicked agree. After entering the group, Ning Shu first secretly observed what was in this chat group. She almost peed her pants when she saw it. All of them were big shots, His Excellency, and he, senior uncle, and some she didn't know. There were a total of 400 to 500 people. She guessed that the silver-haired man was among them, but she didn't know his name. Little Invisible was a little terrified. What kind of situation was this? Could it be that she had successfully infiltrated the inner circle? Was it possible to find out how the main system purified soul energy? The chat group was dead silent. No one spoke. Ning Shu checked the chat history and found that these people rarely spoke. Someone even asked what color the wool should be used to knit a sweater. Someone even took a selfie, and it was a funny selfie, the kind that was unrecognizable. Ning Shu was speechless. She must have gone to the wrong place. She wanted to leave the group. Ning Shu felt that he had spent a lot of money in vain, especially on the silver-haired man. Not long ago, he had spent a lot of money to get the contact information of these big shots from the silver-haired man. In the end, he was now dragged into the group. Ning Shu. After entering the group, not a single person spoke. Ning Shu felt as if he was walking through a mass grave. There was not a single living person. Send a red packet to warm the group. After using up his merit points, he could send a red packet with the power of faith. Could he send a red packet with points? Ning Shu was a little nervous and asked 2333, "Can I send a red packet with points?" 2333, What did you say? What red packet? Ning Shu, after a while, 2333 said, "Up to you." He was hoping that 2333 could give him some advice. Ning Shu thought about it and decided to send a red packet with 5,000 power of faith. As soon as the red packet was sent out, Ning Shu planned to snatch one. However, the red packets were all snatched. The King of Luck was still senior uncle. Ning Shu clicked on the red packet and found that His Excellency and many people had snatched red packets. He couldn't imagine the scene of these big shots grabbing red packets with their legs crossed. His hand speed had been lonely for 10,000 years. He didn't even let go of such a small red packet. With the red packets, the group became a little more lively. Some people asked Ning Shu what kind of world he had built. Ning Shu said that he had built a world like the world of reincarnation. They were all big shots. If he was humble, they wouldn't pay attention to him. When they heard that Ning Shu said it was the world of reincarnation, some people's attitude towards Ning Shu became more enthusiastic. Some people even asked Ning Shu if his world of reincarnation could connect to other worlds now. Ning Shu only said that his world wasn't stable yet, so it couldn't connect to other worlds. The chat group, which had been dead silent before, began to chat. Ning Shu didn't know these people. He clicked on he and asked him alone, "Why did you pull me into such a group?" And he sent an emoji of picking his nose. Of course it's convenient to monitor you. If you dare to slaughter creatures, you will be beheaded in this group. Ning Shu. Does the organization not trust my character that much? Ning Shu couldn't help but ask. If she did something, it would definitely be broadcasted live. The punishment she would receive would be broadcasted live. Fuck, after all this time, this was what it was all about. He wanted to leave the group in anger. And what's there to be upset about? Everyone in the group is being monitored. Next time, send a bigger red packet. Ning Shu, haha, if you think it's too small, don't snatch it. You're snatching it faster than anyone else. Why don't you patrol the billions of worlds and snatch red packets instead? Ning Shu closed the chat system. He didn't want to see it. His head hurt. He thought he had infiltrated the organization, but it turned out that he was the target of surveillance. She had always followed the rules, trembling with fear. She never dared to do anything wrong. Ning Shu dared to pat his chest and guarantee that his character was good. She should still have some character. The organization didn't trust her so much. It was probably difficult for them to know how to purify soul power. Now they suspected that she was going to slaughter creatures. If she knew how to purify souls, these people would definitely suspect that she was going to slaughter creatures and destroy the world. Even if it was someone else, Ning Shu would think that this person would do that. Ning Shu could only comfort himself. Of course, when she was strong, she had to be monitored. In the past, she was invisible. Who would care? I smiled proudly. 2333, do the missions. Ning Shu, okay. How many missions have I accumulated now? 2333 said somewhat helplessly, quite a lot. There weren't many missions before, but your speed of completion couldn't catch up with the speed of distribution, so now the number of missions has been reduced by a lot. Ning Shu, how many did you say there were? 2333, about 20. As time goes by, there will be more. 30, 50, 100, 100,000, Ning Shu, was she the only mission enforcer left in this world? 100,000. I advise you to at least complete half of the missions. When the time comes, you can pass a check. The number of missions you've completed now, the organization will think that you didn't do any missions at all. /BK. Chapter 2551. What if he didn't have enough time? The 9 Palace Mountain matter couldn't be delayed, so he could only reduce the mission time. Because he was late, there was a lot less soul fluid. If he destroyed 5 cities in one go, he would definitely receive more soul fluid. But he couldn't not do the mission. There were so many things to do that he couldn't stop. Okay, let's do the mission now. 2333, System Mission. Ning Shu, why do you ask every time? How do I reject? 2333, System Mission. Ning Shu, go ahead. Ning Shu opened the exchange system and exchanged for fasting pills and medicine. If he encountered the same world again, the fasting pills could help him survive. It could guarantee the basic nutrients his body needed. Let's do the mission. Ning Shu said. Ning Shu felt the world spinning. His soul fused into a body like water. Once it fused into the body, Ning Shu felt like his stomach was being scraped by a steel knife. It was very uncomfortable. There was a warm flow. His stomach was very uncomfortable. Ning Shu held his stomach. Did she have a miscarriage? There was an indescribable sadness in his body. Ning Shu opened his eyes and saw ancient decorations. Why was it that every time he entered a bad situation? At this time, the client's body was in a special situation. It was easier to possess them. But she felt uncomfortable. Ning Shu started to use his ultimate martial arts. He didn't believe that he couldn't do it. There was some spiritual energy in the ancient world. After using his ultimate martial arts, his body finally had some spiritual energy. It was all used to heal his stomach. His stomach hurt too much. Ning Shu felt that this body definitely had a miscarriage. Otherwise, it wouldn't bleed and hurt so much. Was it menstruation? No matter what, he had to stop the pain first. Ning Shu ate 2 more painkillers. There wasn't any saliva in his mouth. Ning Shu wanted to condense a drop of water, but he couldn't use the power of law. Well, Ning Shu could only swallow it. The pill was stuck in her throat and she couldn't swallow it. Ning Shu, looking at the decorations, this should be a rich family. Why didn't they have a maid by their side? After accumulating some saliva, he stretched his neck and swallowed the pill. He endured the pain in his abdomen and began to accept the plot. The client's name was Pan Wenlan. She was the daughter of a merchant and the wife of Lu Hao, a 4th-rank cabinet secretary. Judging from the current level of rank 4, he should be considered a leader at the level of a department. Just as Ning Shu had guessed, the client really did have a miscarriage. As for the cause of the miscarriage, it had something to do with the people in the backyard. The client was the daughter of a merchant. For a merchant's daughter to marry a 4th-rank official as his wife, it could be said that she was climbing the social ladder. In ancient times, the sons of merchants were not allowed to participate in the imperial examinations. Although their lives were worry-free, their social status was really not high, especially in the era of scholars. Scholars were lofty and regarded money as dung and were moral role models. It was not easy for a merchant's daughter to marry into a wealthy family if she wanted to return home. Speaking of the client's husband, it was really an inspirational drama. He was originally a farmer. His father was old and his mother was bedridden. In this era where studying was a luxury, Lu Hao forcefully carved out a path for himself. He killed his way into the Imperial Examination Army and went from a small official to where he was now. There was not much time left. Actually, this Lu Hao was no longer the same person. He was a university student who had just graduated. After failing to find a job, he was angry and pointed to the sky. Then, a bolt of lightning struck him and killed him. Then, he came to ancient times. When he opened his eyes, he was faced with a dilapidated house. He lived a bitter life facing the yellow soil with his back facing the sky. Moreover, his soul was tied to a system called One Step to Heaven. The system's mission was to let the host become an existence that was second only to one person within a set time. He would be promoted to nobility and be conferred the title of Marquis. Of course, it would be even better if he could rebel. However, at this time, scholars were all precious. After all, studying could often make a family poor. Entering the school, writing, ink, paper, ink stone, and the teacher's tuition was a large sum of money. How could ordinary people who dug out food from the soil and relied on the sky to survive have money for their children to study? Moreover, ancient knowledge was monopolized. It was in the hands of the aristocratic families. The aristocratic families produced many talents and controlled the imperial court. Ordinary people were poor generation after generation. It was not easy for a golden phoenix to appear in a chicken coop. Lu Hao, who had transmigrated, was in a predicament. When he saw the system's time and the system's reward, he could only slowly think of a way. Because this body was quite well built and had strength, he worked as a laborer in Squire Pan's house. Lu Hao showed that he was quick-witted. Sometimes, he could even do accounting. The accountant calculated quickly and was literate. Squire Pan was also the client's father. He felt that this person was a talent, so he called him over to ask about his future plans. Lu Hao said without hesitation that he wanted to study and take the imperial examination. Squire Pan felt that this was a little difficult. After all, Lu Hao was now 15 or 16 years old. Those who took the imperial examination did not study from a young age. However, Lu Hao was full of confidence. In modern times, he was a university student. Because of his studies, he could not find a good job after graduation. He did not believe that he could not find a job in ancient times. Squire Pan saw that this laborer was so confident and decided to sponsor him. If this person was successful in the future, at least there would be some friendship. If he failed, it would be a loss of business. Furthermore, this kid was smart. He would definitely be a good businessman in the future. Ancient merchants invested in him in advance. If they married their daughter to the other party, it would slightly change their family background. Lu Hao first experienced the awkwardness and confusion of traditional and simplified Chinese characters. Finally, he could recognize the traditional characters of ancient times. Then, he began to study the 4 books and 5 classics. Lu Hao felt a headache coming. He realized that what he had learned in modern times was just child's play. There were so many books, he had to learn them all. Because of Squire Pan's sponsorship, Lu Hao's life was not so tight. Although he did not eat lavishly, he did not have to starve all day. He participated in the elementary examination. The oldest one was 20 or 30 years old, while the youngest was 7 or 8 years old. Lu Hao's age was not very conspicuous. Lu Hao participated in the elementary examination for the first time. Furthermore, his ranking was quite high. If he went one level higher, he would be considered a scholar. Squire Pan was very happy. If Lu Hao passed the college examination and became a scholar, he would not need to kneel in front of the officials. Even if he did not pass the examination, he would still be a scholar. He would be able to do business with him and marry his daughter to him. Squire Pan asked his daughter to take a look at Lu Hao. Pan Wenlon saw Lu Hao sitting by the door reading a book. Although there was a rundown house behind him, Pan Wenlon only had eyes for Lu Hao. /BK Chapter 2553. As the number one man that all the noble ladies in the capital wanted to marry, Lu Hao had taken in many people over the years. Some of them were noble ladies from noble families, while others were singers and dancers sent by his colleagues. Lu Hao was a modern person, so he didn't have such a strong sense of class. For a single man in the modern world, Lu Hao would do some especially considerate things like cooking porridge for his concubines or giving them small gifts. He seemed to be very caring and very good, different from other men. Some unmarried girls wanted to marry him, even if it was to be a concubine. It was as if they were retarded. All the women in Lu Hao's backyard were equal. In the backyard, there were princesses of golden branches and jade leaves, noble ladies from famous families, noble ladies from aristocratic families, and also those of low status, such as dancers and singers, and even prostitutes from brothels. The difference in status was like heaven and earth, but they had to get along well and call each other sisters. 3 women were enough to make a scene, let alone so many. Those with high status looked down on those with low status, and those with low status were jealous of those with high status. They thought that even if they had high status, they would still be concubines. But in front of Lu Hao, their sisterhood was really deep. They gave in to each other and were happy. As for the client, the main wife was rejected by all the concubines. Everyone looked down on her. How could she be the main wife? As the number of women in Lu Hao's backyard increased, Lu Hao's official position also increased. He went from a small official to a lower-class 4th-rank official. Being an official could give one luck. For someone like him to become a man, the luck of heaven and earth would gather on his body. Moreover, he could also steal the luck from the women in the backyard. Like the princesses and noble ladies, these women all had luck. If they didn't have luck, they would only be children of ordinary families. How could they live a luxurious life and have a group of servants? In the past, there was a system that stole the luck of those geniuses. Of course, there was also a system that stole the luck of women. The client finally got pregnant, but she had a miscarriage not long ago. As for the reason of the miscarriage, it was because she ate something that she shouldn't have. In the backyard, there were many women with all kinds of identities. There were also many pickled things. Everyone outside said that Lu Hao treated her very well, that he would never leave his wife, but only she knew the pain she had to go through. The client had no dignity in this backyard. Even the girls from the brothels despised her. In this backyard, their existence was almost transparent. The women in the backyard had formed their own cliques and cliques. Even so, there were still many women who wanted to marry him. Lu Hao's reputation was very good outside, and many women envied the women who married Lu Hao. It was because Lu Hao treated every woman well and loved them deeply. The client's heart was as dead as ashes. The client who had lost her child was filled with grief and indignation. However, Lu Hao trusted his woman very much. He felt that his woman could not be so vicious. Say it's because the client is old and pregnant. She was an advanced pregnant woman, so it was possible for her to have a miscarriage. When facing women, men had an inexplicable sense of superiority. They felt that women loved them very much and would not do such a thing. Everyone went on blind dates, and everyone was harmonious and close, as if they were sisters. No, even blood-related sisters weren't this close. The client was in despair. The child that she had been looking forward to for so many years had died in the womb and turned into a pool of blood. The women in the backyard were now laughing at her. As the child's father, Lu Hao actually did not think of doing anything for the child he had lost. He even found the murderer. This matter was over just like that. Because the client had suffered a blow, she was bedridden and had constant vomiting. Her body had not recovered, so Lu Hao naturally would not come to see her. However, he had always done a good job of keeping up appearances. He had prepared all kinds of medicinal herbs for his wife to nourish her body, and all kinds of expensive things were stuffed into the client's room. In addition, the outside world's evaluation of him had always been very high, saying that he was different from ordinary men. Of course, he had to maintain this image. Ning Shu moved her body and felt that her stomach was very painful. When she moved, there was vomit below. Her body was very heavy, and she felt dizzy. She really did not have long to live. The client died not long after, and Lu Hao was conferred the title of Marquis. In the end, he opened up a new territory and opened up an overseas market. He actually became a prince. He brought his women and strolled around the world. He could be said to be a strengthened version of Wei Xiaobao. The 3 great joys in life, promotion, wealth, and a dead wife, Lu Hao had all of them. The feeling came a little late. The current Lu Hao had basically become a winner in life. He was already a lower-class 4th-rank official. If time went back to when Lu Hao was still a bumpkin, killing him would be a matter of minutes. But now, it was not possible. After all, he was an official of the imperial court. Moreover, in this era that paid attention to being implicated, the family would be exterminated at the slightest provocation. If something happened to Lu Hao, it would also implicate her and the client's family. Even more so, she could not let Lu Hao be charged with any crime, such as rebellion. He would definitely be implicated. Ning Shu thought in her heart. There was not a single drop of saliva in her mouth. She was very thirsty, but there was no one around to take care of her. She had to get up to drink water by herself. The water was cold. Ning Shu touched the cup and did not drink. Her stomach was so painful, drinking cold water would be like adding frost to snow. "Madam, why are you up?" The maid, Xiao Chui, saw Ning Shu sitting on a stool as soon as she entered the door. She quickly found a soft cushion for Ning Shu to sit down. "I'm thirsty. Get me some hot water," Ning Shu said. Xiao Chui quickly ran to get water. After a while, she hurriedly carried a pot of hot water over. Xiao Chui poured a cup of water and used her mouth to warm the water before handing it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu drank the water as she asked Xiao Chui, "What did you do? Why were you gone for so long?" "I went to stew soup for Madam to nourish her body, but all the stoves in the kitchen were occupied. The cook said that she wanted to stew bird's nest for the princess first." When Xiao Chui mentioned this matter, she was so angry that her eyebrows raised. "It's not what this young miss wants to eat, it's what that young miss wants to eat. I can't even make soup for Madam." In any case, these women in the backyard were all ancestors. The client was already used to it and was also used to retreating. When she encountered such a thing, she never thought of fighting for it. She would avoid it for as long as possible. It was really because the client's identity was worlds apart from these people. The only advantage she had was the identity of the main wife, but in the end, it was taken away. In this backyard, all the women were equal. The client had no advantage at all. Ning Shu touched his growling stomach. He was indeed hungry/BK. Chapter 2554. Go out and buy a stove. We'll make soup in our own courtyard. Ning Shu said lightly. Yes, this servant will do it now. Xiao Chui looked quite happy. In the past, Madam always said that she should do what others did. However, the servants in the manor all bowed to the high and stepped on the low. No matter what they did, they would first prepare good things for the noble madam with a good family background. Sometimes, the madam couldn't even eat something hot when she wanted to. The madam only knew how to endure. That's right, all the women who married in this backyard were called Madam, Madamly, Madam Gu. They were all Madam. This was the first in the capital. In other manors, they were all called concubines, but here, they were all Madams. It was really not differentiated. The client was called Madam Pan by the servants. In fact, the client went from being an official wife to an existence like these concubines. This kind of, you are good, I am good, everyone is good. Some of the bitterness was swallowed by the client. However, if you didn't say it, who would know that you were in pain? Who would know that you were crying in your heart? Only a crying child would have milk to drink. On one hand, the client had low self-esteem. The miscarriage incident made the client completely understand one thing. Some people mistook fickleness for deep love. Lu Hao was similar to other men. He treated women as capital to show off. The more women he had, the stronger a man was. Just like animal groups, strong males could always have more females and have more opportunities to pass on their genes. Unfortunately, the women in the backyard were all immersed in Lu Hao's deep love and felt that they had found the best home. This was because this man would do things that other men wouldn't do. Feeding, massaging, and even during menstruation, he would help rub their stomachs or let the servants prepare warm things to warm their stomachs. He also invented things like simple sanitary napkins. Lu Hao was even known as a friend of women. It was because he loved his women that he invented these things. When an imperial censor said that Lu Hao wasn't a gentleman, Lu Hao righteously said that all men were born from women. Moreover, he loved his wife. What was wrong with that? Instead, the emperor looked at Lu Hao in a different light. The emperor couldn't be bothered to comment on whether Lu Hao was being a gentleman or not. After all, it was someone else's backyard. However, one of them was his own daughter. The emperor was still very happy that his daughter was being treated well. Ning Shu grinned. Xiao Chui had gone out to buy some things. Ning Shu ate a fasting pill and lay back down on the bed. After sitting like this for a while, he felt that his back was sore and his heart was short of breath. Why did it feel like all the system missions were like this? Not only did the system seize the host's soul, it turned out that Lu Hao's soul had also been taken away and devoured by the system. This system was much more advanced than the prostitute system from before, and it threw its host into the limelight. Naturally, there would be people who believed in it, and there would be people who would throw themselves at it. Moreover, it could gather fate. Ning Shu cultivated peacefully. He did not care about anything else. Having a good body was very important. Only with a good body could he work hard. She couldn't do anything while lying in bed, and she had to make those people laugh their heads off. In such a situation, she had to sleep in bed for a few days. The thin spiritual energy merged into her body, and Ning Shu used all the spiritual energy to repair her body. Recently, the missions that she had done had the bodies of the people who had entrusted her with missions that were sick or on the verge of death. As she cultivated, Ning Shu fell asleep in a daze. This body had never slept well, and sleeping was the best way to repair the body. After a comfortable sleep, Ning Shu woke up and saw a man sitting by the bed. This man's face was like jade, and he looked very refined. Ning Shu felt that he must have made some minor adjustments. Moreover, it was a minor adjustment without any side effects. The system was really powerful. It was even the head of the beauty salon. Lu Hao saw his wife staring at his face, and he could not help but frown and ask, "What's wrong with you?" Ning Shu suddenly sighed, "Husband, I feel that you seem to be different from before. You look like you, but you don't look like you. You've become more good-looking." Lu Hao's eyes flickered. After all, it was not the original. After making some minor adjustments, he changed the topic and said, "Are you feeling better?" "No, I still feel uncomfortable. I'm bleeding, and I've changed several blankets. The doctor said that I'm going to lose a lot of blood." Ning Shu said directly. "Although I can't make your heart ache, it's good to disgust you." Lu Hao asked somewhat reproachfully, "Didn't I prepare some nourishing food for your body? Why aren't you eating?" "There's no pot. The pots in the kitchen are all used up. There are many madams in the backyard, so it's not easy to eat." Ning Shu said indifferently. Lu Hao let go of Ning Shu's hand. "So you're blaming me? What is there to blame husband for?" "I'm not blaming husband. I'm just stating the facts." Lu Hao frowned and said, "In the end, you think that the child in your stomach was killed by one of the madams in the backyard. That won't happen." He refused to believe that those women who loved him would harm his child from the bottom of his heart. He was confident that these women loved him deeply. Ning Shu was speechless. There was no way to talk about it. Men looked for many women to reproduce. In the end, the more women there were, the fewer children there would be. "Then take good care of your body. I'll get the kitchen to prepare a stove for you to stew soup." Lu Hao had been in the government for so long, so he took care of everything. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. Lu Hao, who had grown up, was not easy to deal with. In addition, there were many women with prominent family backgrounds in the backyard, which provided Lu Hao's system with a lot of luck. This was a living example of being sold and still helping to count the money. Of course, these women didn't know anything. They were still glad that they met the best man in their lives. Ning Shu was speechless. Was this not a stud horseman? And a very pretentious stud horseman. What equality, love for everything, as if he could risk his life for every woman. Xiao Chui asked the servant to move the donkey into the courtyard. She walked into the house and said to Ning Shu, "Madam, this servant saw that the son-in-law just came. And, did you buy a stove? Let's stew soup." Ning Shu decided to eat and sleep well, and take care of his body before fighting. The client's wish was very complicated. She hated her husband, but she didn't know what to do with him. Her husband was her support, but there were more and more women in the backyard, making her life hopeless. She was the main wife, but she didn't receive the treatment of a main wife. She was even worse than a concubine. However, outsiders said that Lu Hao would never leave her, the main wife. No matter how noble a woman's status was, when she entered Lu Hao's backyard, she would be a co-wife and not the main wife. This, actually, the client could rest assured. Lu Hao wouldn't abandon her. Lu Hao's good reputation was built from her, /BK. Chapter 2555. If Lu Hao abandoned her, everything that Lu Hao had done before would be exposed. It would be like slapping himself in the face. Even his image would be destroyed. However, the client's life was also very difficult. She wouldn't have died not long after the miscarriage. Ning Shu felt that none of the women in the backyard were simple. The princess had the greatest backing, the emperor. The noble ladies all had powerful family backgrounds. Furthermore, they were all daughters who were carefully raised. None of them were simple. The child in the client's stomach should be a trick of these people. Speaking of which, Lu Hao's heirs were indeed quite thin. Other than the princess having a daughter and the client getting pregnant and then having a miscarriage, the other wives didn't have any movements. He didn't know the reason. There was definitely no problem with Lu Hao's ability. He just didn't know why he had so few heirs. Xiao Chui started a fire in the courtyard to stew soup. She stayed by the stove and stewed for more than 2 hours. Her face was covered in ashes from the pot. She stewed a fragrant soup for Ning Shu. Ning Shu drank 2 bowls in a row. When Xiao Chui saw that Ning Shu was willing to eat, she was very happy. After drinking 2 bowls of soup, her entire body felt warm. She was especially energetic when she cultivated. However, her lower body was especially uncomfortable, as if she was on her period. "I won't meet anyone who comes over these few days," Ning Shu said to Xiao Chui. Xiao Chui asked, "What if it's the princess?" The madams were especially weak when facing the princess. They basically wouldn't reject the princess. Status determined one's personality. Ning Shu said directly, "Say that I'm recuperating. If they're not afraid of being tainted, just tell them the truth." Ning Shu didn't want to have to deal with such a large group of people when he was cultivating and recuperating. The client didn't dare to reject, but it didn't mean that she had to support these people. Some of these people were daughters that their families had carefully nurtured. They could marry into rich and powerful families and be the main wife of a family of equal status. In the end, they all came together to be Lu Hao's concubines. Although they were co-wives, they were actually concubines. What kind of magic did this Lu Hao have? It was probably the system that strengthened his male hormones. Or was it because Lu Hao had managed his reputation too well, causing these women to lose a string in their heads? Being an official required a good reputation. Most likely, no one was like Lu Hao, who started with women. Other men wouldn't even bother to do this. Ning Shu couldn't help but think of a conspiracy theory. In fact, the client and Lu Hao were no longer in love with each other after they came to the capital. There were too many women distracting Lu Hao's attention. Sometimes, Lu Hao had no choice but to use the client as a shield. For example, when he rejected the princess, he used the client as an excuse. If he really stopped having a wife and remarried, then his political future in this life would be more or less gone. Even if he became a prince consort, he would be a prince consort who ate free rice and did not have any real power. Now that the princess had married into the Lu family as a concubine, the situation was different. It was not the other way around, but the other way around. It's not that I'm vain and greedy for glory and wealth to marry a princess. Not only would he gain an advantage, but he would also gain a good reputation. Before Lu Hao transmigrated, he was only a university student. What's more, he was a university student who had yet to enter society. How did he become so dark all of a sudden? Ning Shu felt that he was probably thinking too much. However, Lu Hao, who was a fourth-rank secondary class, should be very dark now. He had connections. There were so many women in the backyard, and all of them were family connections. There was also the princess. Whoever dares to touch the princess's man, I will destroy them. In terms of status, he was already a fourth-rank secondary class. He should be considered the person who was promoted the fastest. Therefore, the current Lu Hao was already showing signs of soaring to the sky. Ning Shu scratched his head. It was a bit difficult. She had to protect herself and drag Lu Hao down with her. It was basically impossible. Because if Lu Hao was dragged down, she would also be dragged down with 9 generations of her family. Xiao Chui saw that the madam had become firm and was very happy. She immediately replied crisply, Xiao Chui will definitely not let anyone else in to disturb the madam. Xiao Chui did not dare to mention the matter of the child. She was afraid that the madam would be sad. Xiao Chui felt that the son-in-law was a heartless man. When the son-in-law had nothing, the madam was by his side and took care of everything for him. Now that he had a bright future, he had so many women. The madam planted a tree, fertilized and watered it every day. It was not easy for it to bear fruit. The fruit was ripe, but there were so many people coming to pick the fruit. They even bullied the people who watered and fertilized it. Was it easy for the madam to stay with the son-in-law until now? The people outside all said how good the son-in-law was, but he was a chinshimi. Ning Shu lived the life of a postpartum confinement. She ate whatever was delicious and drank soup every day. After a month of postpartum confinement, Ning Shu fattened up this body. There were women in the backyard who came to visit Ning Shu. They said that they came to see if she was doing well. They were all stopped by Xiao Chui. The postpartum confinement was quiet. When she came out of the confinement, she washed herself. When she looked in the mirror, her face was rosy. In fact, if she tortured herself like this and fell into pain, but the people she cared about did not care at all, the one who was in pain was still herself. She could eat, sleep, play, and enjoy a rich life. Didn't the entrusted person's father marry her to Lu Hao so that his daughter could live a rich life? And it was a life of status. In the end, she led a miserable life. One's attitude towards life was very important. No matter what she faced, she had to love herself first. She had not left the courtyard for more than a month. After washing up, Ning Shu went to walk around the garden. She had to meet these women. The child in the entrusted person's stomach was gone. It must be done by these women in the backyard. As for who it was, she had to investigate carefully. The death of her child must be avenged. At the same time, she had to think of a way to deal with Lu Hao. The Lu residence was quite big. As the number of women in the backyard increased, it was expanded several times. With the addition of the princess, the Imperial Household Department bought many things in the Lu residence, making the Lu residence look luxurious. The weather was good. Ning Shu walked in the garden and saw that the pavilion was filled with women who were chatting and calling each other sisters intimately. At a glance, there were beautiful women. They were fat and thin. There were all kinds of styles. Noble and cold, pure and moving, charming and enchanting. With the system, she could become a winner in life. Who would have thought that Lu Hao's core was a young man who could not even find a job in modern society? He came here to become a high-ranking official. In the future, he would be conferred the title of Marquis. How strange. Ning Shu's sudden appearance caused the scene to be silent for a moment. The most frightening thing was that the air suddenly became silent. Sister Pan, are you feeling better? Princess Ning Shu, who was sitting in the middle, asked. The princess's clothes were probably the best here. She wore an exquisite hairpin made by the royal craftsman and a jade bracelet with almost no impurities on her wrist. /BK You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.